Our story begins in a place where the rain is pouring heavily and our main character is trembling, trying to reach for a glass of water on the table. However, the glass slips and falls to the ground. He becomes angry, punches his bed, and wonders if he has truly become useless now. This story takes place in the Xuan world continent, where the strong are highly respected. To become a warrior, ordinary people must first awaken their martial meridians. These are channels inside the human body that can sense and absorb spiritual energy, which is the foundation of a warrior's power. Martial meridians can carry this energy throughout the body, giving warriors the ability to perform extraordinary feats like cutting through rivers with a blade, controlling the weather, and even having the power to shape the world. Our main character's name is Lu Hao, and a month ago, he awakened 4 martial meridians, becoming the top disciple of the Lu family in Tianqi City. However, he discovered that his peer, Lu Xiaolin, was mistreating a female disciple in secret. Unable to stand by, he intervened to help, not realizing that he was falling into the trap of clan chief Lu Tianyun, who happens to be Xiaolin's grandfather. Clan chief Lu Tianyun and Xiaolin were jealous of Lu Hao's rapid progress, so they staged an elaborate scheme. They made it seem like Lu Hao had assaulted a girl, with Xiaolin playing the role of the hero, even attempting to harm Lu Hao. Consequently, they accused him of conspiring against clan members, completely crippling his martial meridians and banishing him from the clan. Now, he has lost all his martial powers, leaving him questioning his place in a world where strength is everything. Hopelessly, he gazed at a letter on his table, mentioning that 10 years east of the river, the golden scales transform into a dragon at times, and she has returned to the Xuan sword sect. He realizes he must gather his strength, as this message is from Hua Dai, the only person who cared for him during his downfall. Unbelievably, she is a disciple of the highly respected Xuan sword sect. He remembers Dai telling him that if he wishes to repay her, he should live with determination. Shakingly, he tells himself that he can't give up, he must take action, or he won't be able to repay Lu Xiaolin and Lu Tianyun. He heads to a weapon shop in Tianqi City, even though they see him as an enemy now. For his safety, he needs to leave the city quickly. However, since he was expelled, even buying a basic self-defense sword is a luxury. He knows that without a weapon, leaving the city will be even more dangerous. As he asks the shop owner if there's anything cheaper, someone in the shop recognizes him as Lu Hao, the most promising talent in Tianqi City. Xiaolin, accompanied by 2 large bodyguards, approaches him, expressing surprise that he's still alive. Lu Hao is shocked to see Xiaolin there, and before he can react, Xiaolin orders his bodyguards to capture him. The 2 hefty men grab him and pin him to the ground. Xiaolin told him that he not only falsely accused him but also tried to harm a fellow clansman like him. So, he demanded that he kneel and apologize now, or he'll harm him. But he just teasingly asked Xiaolin if he was forcing him to kneel on baseless accusations. He told Xiaolin that even if the sky falls, it's impossible. Xiaolin kicked him hard while telling him that if he won't comply, he better die. Then Xiaolin's bodyguards continued to kick him. He thought that Xiaolin was at the 2nd stage of Kai condensation, so in his current state with no martial power, he can't resist Xiaolin at all. Xiaolin told him that the move he was about to make was to disable his lower body. Then Xiaolin punched his back hard, making him shout in pain. He noticed that he had lost sensation in his legs and wondered if he was going to die. But then, a light appeared in his backbone, and a dragon emerged from it. He felt that his legs were healing, along with his injuries. He remembered that his father mentioned that the Lu clan might have the potential to awaken the divine dragon bloodline. Once awakened, its potential is immeasurable. The divine dragon bloodline is a special power that can suppress other martial meridians. The conditions for awakening it are still unknown, but the immense power of the divine dragon bloodline can bring a warrior's own power to its peak, unmatched by any other martial meridian. This made him realize that he had awakened the divine dragon bloodline. Xiaolin launched a kick at him while warning him that his kick might kill him. He rolled to the side to avoid it and grabbed Xiaolin's sword, leaving Xiaolin shocked. Then he slashed the sword towards Xiaolin, threatening to make him taste the feeling of being better off dead. Xiaolin, along with his bodyguards, was thrown away. Then, he placed the sword above Xiaolin while asking if he knew how he had spent those days since he was crippled. He stabbed the sword into Xiaolin's legs, asking if he knew what he had been through. He told Xiaolin that the strike was what he owed him. Then, he stabbed Xiaolin again, saying it was the strike to repay his grandfather, Lu Tianyun. Xiaolin told him to stop, but he just raised the sword and stabbed it into Xiaolin's chest, breaking the golden ball inside Xiaolin. He shouted that it was the strike of punishment Xiaolin deserved and called him a traitor. Xiaolin angrily called him a coward and asked how he dared to challenge his cultivation. He pulled the sword up, telling Xiaolin that it was reciprocity, a return gift for him. He also said he wouldn't forget his grandfather's share. Then, he swiftly dashes away, leaving the people shocked and horrified. He shouted that Xiaolin had been crippled by Hao. A moment later, in Tianqi City Mansion, the guards reported to Tianyun that Xiaolin's cultivation had been crippled by Hao in the weapon shop. Tianyun angrily shouted that it was outrageous and asked who dared to harm his grandson like that. He furiously ordered his people to search for Hao, even if they had to dig 3 feet into the earth to skin and dismember Hao. While everyone was searching intensely within the city, little did they know that Hao had already left the city and was hiding in the mountains outside. 3 days later, in the mountains, Hao was meditating. He remembered that those who awaken the divine dragon bloodline can rejuvenate their martial meridians and develop an inheritance of meridians beyond ordinary ones. He wondered why, after awakening, he still hadn't restored even one ordinary meridian. He thought about combining it with the Liu clan's ancestral technique called the Golden Dragon 9 Transformations. Legend had it that the Golden Dragon 9 Transformations were the Liu clan's most potent cultivation technique. After 9 transformations, one could defy heaven and earth with an indestructible body of gold. However, after years of practice by clan disciples, it had been found to be completely useless. Nonetheless, the Golden Dragon 9 Transformations were known by every Liu clan descendant, so it was worth a try. He activated the technique. A month and a half later, a bright and strong light could be seen in the cave on the mountain, and Hao successfully activated it. Also, not only did he recover one ordinary meridian, but his cultivation also returned to the second stage of Kai condensation. He realized that the Golden Dragon 9 transformations must be used with the Divine Dragon bloodline. Furthermore, he successfully opened an inheritance meridian. People often say that cultivating with an inheritance meridian is as fast as having 5 ordinary meridians. If 2 people have the same level of cultivation, the one with an inheritance meridian will have greater combat power than someone with 5 ordinary meridians. So, he knows that once he restores the remaining 3 ordinary meridians, his cultivation speed will surpass that of a genius with 8 meridians. He also understands that while ordinary meridians are limited to 8, inheritance meridians have no such restriction. He thinks that although opening an inheritance meridian is difficult and requires special circumstances or rare treasures, he wonders if he'll have the opportunity to open other inheritance meridians in the future. Then he confidently told Tianyun that even though he was at the 6th stage of True Kai, he believed the day of their demise wasn't too far off. A moment later, in a deep forest outside the city, he faced the 2nd stage mutant beast, the Howling Moon Azure Wolf. He knew that the strength of the Howling Moon Azure Wolf could rival that of a 3rd stage Kai condensation martial artist. He wondered if he, at the 2nd stage of Kai condensation, could handle it. It ran toward him to attack, and he ran toward it to meet it in the center. When they were close, he slashed it with his sword, and it attacked him with its claws. In the end, it simply scratched him, but he slashed through its body, and it collapsed on the ground dead. He proudly thought that he successfully slew it, without paying much attention to his injuries. He knew that just now, he took a hit from the Howling Moon Pale Wolf with his physical body, but it only left a few claw marks. He noticed that the dragon god's bloodline had made his body very strong. He bent down to the wolf's corpse, knowing that fierce beasts generally have beast crystals inside them. These crystals hold the energy of fierce beasts and can be used for cultivation to increase one's strength, making them valuable treasures for martial artists. He was glad to find one inside it, but he was shocked to hear someone calling him a lowly mutt and telling him that he was hiding there. When he looked back, he saw Xiaolin telling him that he'd rather give up returning to the main clan than not find him. Today, he was going to chop him up and feed him to the dogs, but he just asked Xiaolin if he hadn't disabled him. Xiaolin replied that after he disabled him, the main clan sent a secret realm expert to Tianqi City and saved him. He asked what a secret realm expert was, but Xiaolin just told him not to ask too many questions. He said he only disabled him with a sneak attack, so today he was fully prepared and wouldn't let him leave there alive. Then Xiaolin ordered his people to attack and told them there was a great reward for taking Hao's life. But one of the men fearfully told Xiaolin that he had just seen Hao slay the Howling Moon Pale Wolf with a single strike. With that power, he was afraid that even with the cultivation of the fourfold Kai condensation, they couldn't match it. Xiaolin then attacked the man, slamming him hard against a tree. Xiaolin told his people that Hao was trying to show off in front of others and asked them how a useless person like him could slay the Howling Moon Pale Wolf. Xiaolin jumped toward Hao while telling his people to watch how he takes care of Hao. Then Xiaolin attacked Hao using his 4-finger skill, but Hao just told Xiaolin that he had some discernment among his subordinates. He jumped toward Xiaolin to meet his attack, asking Xiaolin if he was seeking his own doom. Their palm martial arts clashed in the center, creating a huge explosion in the surroundings. Xiaolin laughed and teasingly asked him if he thought his first layer palm seal could defeat his 3 perfect layers. Furiously, he told him that he'd crush him into pieces. But Xiaolin was shocked to see a dragon head pierce through his 3 perfect layers of palm attack and couldn't believe that his palm seal had been penetrated. The dragon went straight towards Xiaolin, who shouted in confusion, asking what it was. Xiaolin was thrown away and fell to the ground severely injured, leaving his people shocked and unable to believe that their boss had been defeated. He proudly thought that even though they both used the yellow-grade martial arts called the Mountain Crushing Palm, with the blessing of the Dragon God's bloodline and the Golden Dragon 9 transformation technique, Xiaolin and he were worlds apart. He walked closer to Xiaolin, making the men step back, and he told Xiaolin that last time, he spared him, but now he came looking for death. Xiaolin fearfully looked at him and begged him to spare him. But he angrily looked at Xiaolin, telling him that today, he'd make sure he died for good. He powerfully stepped on Xiaolin's torso, and Xiaolin died in an instant. The men kneeled on the ground and respectfully begged him to spare them. They explained to him that they were forced to follow Xiaolin and didn't want to harm him. He told them that they could live but had to tell him about the secret realm expert that Xiaolin mentioned. After the men told him everything, he ordered them to get lost, and they immediately obeyed him. He learned that the main Lu clan had discovered a new blessed land capable of accommodating 100,000 people. Astonishingly, they sent a secret realm expert to Tianqi City, claiming that the expert was searching for his parents and wanted to prevent him from returning to the main clan. This made him wonder if his parents were killed by fierce beasts when they went on a mission when he was a child, and if there might be something suspicious about their deaths. He knew that martial arts had 10 major realms, each divided into 9 sub-realms. The major realms were the Body Tempering Realm, Kai Condensation Realm, True Kai Realm, and Holy Martial Realm. After that came the Yellow Extreme Realm, Profound Extreme Realm, Earth Extreme Realm, and Heaven Extreme Realm, collectively known as the 4 Extreme Secret Realms. Those who entered the Secret Realm were without exception the top experts in the Empire. Although there were legends of the Unity Realm and Martial God Realm experts beyond the 4 Extreme Secret Realms, he realized that now that the Secret Realm expert was targeting him, the pressure was already immense. Since it was related to the death of his parents, he knew he must investigate thoroughly. The next day, in Tianqi City at the Lu family manor, he heard someone saying that it seemed foreign disciples were all trash, including Hao, and even among foreigners, Hao was considered a waste. Lu Zuer told Lu Zhan that she wouldn't allow him to speak ill of their brother Hao. She explained that the spiritual energy in Tianqi City was much lower than in their main clan's blessed land, so it was only natural there would be a difference. Hao was shocked to see Lu Zuer because he didn't expect that she still remembered him. He remembered that many years ago, when he was still in the main clan, he was the only one who didn't awaken a martial vein, and everyone else called him useless. Only Zuer was willing to play with him. Lu Wu asked them if they had heard that Hao's father was deceived by Lu Songxi. Lu Zhan asked Wu what he meant by it. Wu replied that Hao's father gave up all his assets to persuade Songxi to transfer the dragon spirit wholly due to Hao when he was 6, so he could awaken his martial vein. However, the cunning Songxi gave Hao's father water instead. After discovering the truth, Hao's father fought with Songxi, but Songxi had more allies, so Hao's father was outnumbered, injured, and had to leave the main clan. So now, even among foreigners, Hao had been expelled, and Wu thought that Lu Hao's family was truly unfortunate. Jan laughed and told Wu that it was not in vain that they came to the foreigners to see that spectacle. But then Zuer got really angry and told them that she advised them not to speak recklessly because once she uncovered the truth about Hao and his family, she'd make those who persecuted them pay. Wu agreed with her but reminded her that Songxi had already sent people to kill Hao, so her Hao probably wouldn't survive. Hao figured out that it was Songxi from the main clan who caused his parents harm and sent Xiaolin to kill him. He thought that since Songxi wanted to exterminate his family, he has to become stronger and make the Songxi clan pay. 1.5 months later, outside the Tianqi City warrior market, Hao, who was at the 2nd level of condensing Kai realm, 1 inherited martial vein, and 2 ordinary martial veins, thought that the beast crystals of the Howling Moon Wolf were indeed good because after using them, not only did it stabilize his martial vein, but even the Golden Dragon 9 transformation technique reached its first perfect form. He remembered that they said when the Golden Dragon 9 transformation technique reached each perfect form, he could comprehend a unique skill. He wondered why he hadn't comprehended it yet. Then he heard a man telling everyone to sign up and form a team to go to the Xuanjian sect. The road was dangerous, so those below the 3rd level of the condensing Kai realm needed to apply. He knew that the Xuanjian sect was a major force in the entire eastern domain, a dream for every cultivator. If he could enter the Xuanjian sect, not only could he become stronger, but Hua Dai was there and he could repay her for saving him. Suddenly, someone asked who the young man over there was, and he immediately turned around, confused. A lady with 3 guys asked him if he wanted to join them and sign up for the Xuanjian sect. She told him that the journey to register was perilous and that they needed at least 5 people in a team, but they were 1 person short. He told them that he was only at the 2nd level of condensing Kai and asked them if they weren't afraid he'd slow them down. The woman replied that it was okay and that meeting was fate, so they should set off together. He thought it was strange that others disdained to form a team with him at the second level of condensing Kai, but he guessed that those people didn't seem to mind. Night came, and they were resting in the center of the forest while the woman told them that they should rest there and that she'd go gather firewood. One of the men told the other man to share the dry rations with everyone, and the other man replied that he'd look for them. But he felt something was not right. Those two men seemed simple, but he had a feeling they were not there to register. Suddenly, the men turned around and jumped toward the sleeping man to attack. He worriedly shouted to the sleeping man to be careful. Fortunately, the sleeping man speedily dodged the attack, faced the men who attacked him, and asked them what they wanted, leaving Hao amazed at the man's swift moves. One of the attackers told the man that it was no wonder he was the young clan leader of the Gu family because at such a young age, he had mastered the ghost shadow step to that extent. The other attacker told the man that his life indeed wanted. Then the man showed the wanted poster with a reward of 10,000. Hao wondered if he wasn't the target and noticed that both of those individuals had the strength of the 4th level of the condensing Kai realm, so their chances didn't look too good. But then the man called him brother and told him that it wasn't his concern, so he should run. Suddenly, a chain was thrown toward them and wrapped around the man's feet. The man was shocked and noticed that it was iron chains, making him realize that he couldn't use the ghost shadow step anymore. The two attackers jumped forward to the man while telling him that he was still too young. Fortunately, Hao jumped forward in time to block the two attackers' attack and teasingly asked the men if they invited him along just to make up the numbers. The man called him worriedly, making him realize that the man had a good nature worth saving, and then he forcefully threw the attackers away. One of the others told him that he was just there to fill the numbers, but he meddled in other people's business, so if he wanted to play the hero, he'd start by gutting him. Then the attackers ran forward to him while continuously swinging their swords to attack him. The man worriedly told him to run because the attackers were at the 4th level of condensing Kai, and he was not their match. But he just ran toward the attackers and asked them if they were even worthy. Then he speedily jumped forward to them and slashed them like air, making the man freeze and wonder how he had killed them all in an instant. He put his sword back in its sheath while proudly thinking that the Golden Dragon 9 transformation technique combined with an inherited martial vein power was indeed formidable. But then someone dropped wood on the ground, attracting his attention, and saw the woman shakingly asking him if he was going to kill her. He walked closer to her, telling her that it was okay and that the killers were already dead, so he wouldn't harm her. She replied that it was a relief while holding a sharp knife behind her and then attacked him, telling him to die. He was thrown in pain and shocked, but the woman just told him that she didn't expect him to kill her two subordinates, and that it seemed like he, the outsider, was not to be trifled with. He felt that the woman was at the 6th level of condensing Kai, stronger than the previous two. Suddenly, the woman speedily ran toward him and attacked him, telling him that he was meddling too much, so he must die there. The man who was trying to free himself from the chain worriedly told him not to mind him and that he should run. The woman speedily and strongly attacked him, making him let go of his sword and slam into a tree hard, causing him to cough up blood. He didn't expect the woman to hide her strength and wondered if he was going to die there. The woman launched toward him, telling him that neither of them could escape. But suddenly, he felt something inside his body and saw the techniques. Then when the woman was about to stab him in the face, he gained confidence, telling himself that he couldn't fall there yet. Then he activated his dragon fist and punched the woman, breaking the knife in the process. The woman coughed up blood and shouted in pain. Then she was thrown away and slammed hard onto a huge stone, resulting in her death. The man was surprised to see it and couldn't believe that someone with just the strength of a 2nd level of condensing Kai had defeated someone at the 6th level of condensing Kai. Hao was glad that he had grasped the first technique of the Golden Dragon 9 transformation technique at such a critical moment, and wondered if it was this powerful with just the first technique. However, he felt like all the strength in his body had been drained and thought that the Dragon Fist of No Regrets was indeed powerful, but it came with significant after effects. A minute later, he snapped the man's chain and introduced himself as Lu Hao. Then he asked the man why he was wanted, thinking that to avoid exposing his identity and being hunted down, they should use fake names when they are outside from now on. The man replied that his name was Gu Chen and there were some issues with his family, and he was put on their wanted list, making him realize that Chen was also being pursued by a family and that they were both wanderers of the world. Chen told him that he'd remember that favor of saving him and asked him if he was going to the Xuanjian sect. Then he told him that since they had come that far, they should go together. He offered his fist and told Chen that time was tight and now he and Chen were brothers looking out for each other. Chen accepted his fist and told him that he trusted him. The next day, they heard the man tell everyone to come if they wanted to register and join the Xuanjian sect. He told them that they needed to undergo a qualification test first. The people were noisy, chattering around, and Hao was glad that he had finally finished testing. When he was about to come out of the tent, he saw Chen coming out of the other tent too. Chen told him that he had 7 martial veins, rated as the highest level, and asked him how many he had. He awkwardly replied that he had 3 martial veins, rated as the lowest level, making Chen confused and asking him if he was so strong with only 3 martial veins. But then a man who was walking past them teased him, asking how dare a scrub with only 3 martial veins still dared to come there and make a spectacle of himself. He just laughed, knowing that he had an inherited martial vein, but they just couldn't detect it. Then he told Chen that it was no problem and they should go participate in the competition, realizing that inherited martial veins are too unique, so he better keep them hidden for now. A moment later, all the participants were gathered, and the man told everyone that they had all passed the initial selection and had suitable qualifications. However, having suitable qualifications alone didn't meet their requirements for the Xuanjian sect. Now, the 6,000 people must secure 1,000 platforms within half an hour and pass the test on those platforms to enter the Xuanjian sect. Chen thought that with 6,000 people competing for 1,000 platforms, the competition would be fierce. Then the man shouted that the Xuanjian sect's entrance test had begun, and the countdown began. The people immediately ran away to start their mission. Chen told Hao that there were many empty platforms ahead, and they should each occupy one quickly, to which he agreed. The participants jumped to the standing platforms in a hurry. Chen landed on one platform, but the men teasingly told him that the platform was theirs, so he should get lost and launched an attack on him. However, he just looked around and attacked the man, shouting for them to get lost. But then another man jumped to attack him and teasingly told him not to just guard his back. But he simply smacked his sheath into the man's face, and the man fell. He noticed that there were so many challengers, so it might be quite difficult to hold out for half an hour. Half an hour later, he was tired and kneeling on the platform but was glad that he had finally made it through. He noticed that in that half hour, he had defeated 9 opponents, and he thought it was an impressive record in the arena. He wondered how Hao was doing but was shocked in fear when he saw Hao defeat a swarm of men while complaining and asking if everyone thought they could come and attack him just because he was at the 2nd level of condensing Kai. Then he angrily asked them if he looked that easy to bully and noticed that he had defeated more than 50 opponents, ranking 1st in the entire arena. Then he waved his hand to say hi to Chen, who was shocked, knowing that he had only defeated fewer than 10 people, but Hao had actually defeated dozens of people. The man shouted to everyone that time was up and told the remaining 1,000 people on the platform to advance because the next test was the blaze body forging. The man explained to them that in blaze body forging, as long as 500 people were eliminated, the remaining 500 would directly advance. Then fire appeared underground beneath them. Chen felt that it was so hot, and the other people on the platform felt uncomfortable because of it. Chen, who was on the platform, also felt the same and thought that if he wasn't at the 3rd level of condensing Kai, he'd have definitely collapsed now. He remembered that Hao was only at the 2nd level of condensing Kai, making him wonder if Hao could hold up. He worriedly looked at Hao and told him that he must hold on. But he was shocked that Hao was lying on the platform, chilling like he couldn't feel anything. Chen wondered how it was possible. How could Hao sleep so comfortably under that scorching heat, and if Hao wasn't suffering? Half an hour later, the man told them that 500 people had already fallen from the platforms and congratulated the remaining 500 of them. He announced to them that they had officially become disciples of the Xuanjian sect. While the others were exhausted, Hao just yawned as if he had a good sleep. He didn't expect that with the boost from the inherited martial vein and the Golden Dragon 9 transformation technique, the entry test would be so easy for him. He was glad that they had finally made it into the Xuanjian sect. A moment later, they were inside the Xuanjian sect flying vehicle, and he happily asked if it was the Xuanjian sect while looking down. Then he shouted that it was enormous. When they landed in the outer disciples area of the Xuanjian sect, the man told them that those who weren't selected as inner disciples would stay there for now. The man also informed them that some of them had been chosen to become inner disciples, and even though they hadn't been selected, they shouldn't lose heart because 3 months later, the sect would hold a test for both inner and outer disciples. As long as they dedicated themselves to training during that time, they could still become an inner disciple through the test. Hao knew that the difference between outer and inner disciples was significant. Outer disciples relied solely on themselves for cultivation, essentially starting from scratch. In contrast, inner disciples had renowned mentors, access to various elixirs and treasures, all of which greatly aided in their cultivation. He knew that he must pass the test in 3 months and thought that due to Chen's 7 martial veins, Chen had already been chosen as an inner disciple. He realized that for the next 3 months, he needed to work hard to catch up with Chen. A moment later, he went toward the village and looked at the condensing Kai pills that he had received from the sect, knowing that condensing Kai pills were excellent for enhancing condensing Kai cultivation. He thought the Xuanjian sect was quite generous. Then he saw a closed door, making him wonder if it was his room. He pushed the door open and happily introduced himself as Hao Lu, telling the man that from that day on, he was his roommate and they should help each other out in the future, which made the man jump in shock. The man fearfully told him that they had nothing to do with each other and not to even think about taking his condensing Kai pill, making him confused because he wasn't thinking about it and thought that his roommate seemed a bit strange. The next day, he heard someone shouting and asking if senior brother was there and if he was reluctant to receive a gift. He angrily came out of his room and asked what all the noise was about so early in the morning. He grabbed one of the men's shoulders and asked what was going on. The man whispered to him that yesterday, the new students received condensing Kai pills, and today senior brother Wu Neng was there, as usual, to ask for gifts from the new students. The man also told him that Neng was the most influential among the outer disciples, and that every year he grabbed the condensing Kai pills from the new students, and they had all been robbed by him. However, this time, a new student was unwilling to give it up and got into a fight with Neng. Outer disciple Wu Neng angrily called the man he was beating a bastard and asked him if he really didn't want to give it up. Hao looked closely at the poor man on the ground and noticed that the man was his roommate. The man told Neng to stop because he would give it to him, but Neng just asked the man if it wouldn't have been better if he had done it from the start. Then a hand grabbed Neng's shoulder and he told Neng that the man was his roommate, and they were newcomers, but he was taking the condensing Kai pills from them right away. He asked Neng if it wasn't against the rules. Neng pushed him away and told him to get lost, saying that survival of the fittest was a rule allowed by the sect. Then Neng asked him if he wanted to play the hero for that man, and he replied that it meant it was okay to hit people and steal things. Neng agreed, calling him a punk and teasingly asking him what he was going to do. He grabbed Neng's hand and turned it around, breaking it, making Neng shouts in pain. The student was shocked that he actually attacked Wu Neng and asked how dare he. The man angrily called him a jerk and asked him how dare he lay hands on their senior brother Wu Neng. But he just reminded them that Neng said it was okay to fight earlier, and asked if he did something wrong. Neng got really pissed and turned toward him to attack while telling him that he dared to touch him, so he'll disable him. The other people shouted that Neng was at the 5th level of condensing Kai. There was a time when a new student accidentally offended Neng and ended up half paralyzed, and that he was finished today. But he just activated his dragon fist, then launched his fist toward Neng's fist, and their fists clashed together, but Neng was thrown away defeatedly and slammed into the wall hard, breaking it in the process. The men immediately ran toward Neng and asked if he was okay, but Neng just wondered what kind of strength that new student had to break his arm. Then he angrily asked Hao how dare he break his arm, and ordered his men to attack Hao because he was going to cripple Hao's limbs. The 3 men immediately ran toward Hao to attack, but he simply dodged one of them. Then he attacked them with one punch, and the 3 men were easily thrown away while he asked them how dare they have the nerve to rob people. Then, the men were thrown away beside Neng, leaving him shocked. He couldn't believe that the newcomer was actually that strong. Hao walked closer to Neng, asking if the rumors were true, that he had taken all the new students' pills. He told Neng that he wanted him to return all the pills to everyone and give him his condensing Kai pills. Neng raised his foot, which had a sharp blade, and asked if Hao wanted him to give back all the pills. Neng swung his foot to attack Hao while saying, "Dream on." However, he dodges it easily while telling Neng that it seemed he was still reluctant to give in. Hao appeared behind Neng, launching his foot and squeezing Neng's leg, making him shout in pain. Hao told Neng that if he didn't hand over the pills, he would break his leg again because it followed the sect's rules. Neng replied, okay, and said he'd give half of them to him. But Hao stamped hard on Neng's leg, making him cry out in pain, and asked him what he was doing when he said he'd give them. Hao seriously asked Neng if he was only willing to give half and told him that it seemed he thought he was easy to negotiate with. Defeated, Neng told him that he was wrong and that he'd give them all. Hao grabbed the pills while teasingly telling Neng that he had threatened to cripple him earlier, and if he had just talked nicely, it wouldn't have come to this. Neng was furious because all his limbs were broken by Hao and swore that he wouldn't coexist with that kid. A moment later, he announced that the condensing Kai pills had been returned to everyone. The newbies cheered and called him their hero, thanking him for getting their pills back. However, he humbly told them that they were all welcome and that they were all new students, so they should support each other. The man who had been beaten up earlier thought that as a newcomer, Hao had bravely resisted oppression, while him being beaten up. He clenched his fist, knowing that his goal in martial arts was to resist injustice and protect his family bravely. He swore that from that day on, he must be like Hao and wouldn't be weak like he was today anymore. Then, he thanked Hao and introduced himself as Zio Zemo. Zemo apologized to him for misunderstanding him yesterday, and explained that he came from a humble background. Condensing Kai pills were crucial to him, so he thought he was there to steal them. Hao told Zemo not to worry and declared that from that day on, they were brothers who would help each other out. Then he told Zemo that it was nice to meeting him, to which Zemo replied nice meeting him too. Meanwhile, in the Outer Discipline Enforcement Hall, someone told a man named Huang Hong that he had no idea how strong Hao was. Neng, who was wrapped in bandages, tells Huang Hong, who was sitting in the center, that a new student had beaten him up and begged Huang Hong for help. An Enforcement Hall member's inner disciple, Huang Hong, along with an Enforcement Hall member outer disciple named Huang Lai, teasingly asked Neng if he could believe that Hao had attacked him over some pills. They told him that he was really useless. However, as an inner disciple, it was not appropriate to retaliate against newcomers. Neng asked Hong if it meant they would just take a beating, but Hong assured them not to worry. He mentioned that 1 month from then, on the day for the newcomers to go out on an adventure, he would be there as a senior brother to protect Hao. Neng thanked Hong, and they all shouted that Hong was mighty. 1 month later, he was busy meditating on the middle of the forest, knowing that the next day was the day for the new students to go on their adventures. Only by going through that adventure could they qualify for the inner and outer disciple examination, and have a chance to enter the inner sect. He was glad that with the help of the condensing Kai pills given by Neng, he had broken through to the 3rd level of condensing Kai during that testing period and had repaired the 4th ordinary meridian. So, he planned to test his strength improvement during that period, knowing that a month ago, he had to exert all his strength to break a boulder. Then he positioned himself, planning to give it a try. Then he punched the huge stone, causing it to shatter into pieces along with the trees and other stones that his force hit. He noticed that with just his strength, he could shatter boulders, and his current power was more than twice what it was a month ago. He thought that if he used the Dragon Fist unreservedly now, he wouldn't be completely drained again, and he was determined to qualify for the assessment of both the inner and outer disciples. The next day, a huge ship landed on the ground, and someone was shouting his name, asking where he was. He appeared, and the man searching for him furiously told him that he had been looking for him for a while, and asked if he was Liu Hao. He responded by asking the man who he was. The man introduced himself as Huang Hong, the captain of his team, responsible for ensuring his safety during his training. Then Hong told him that if he wanted to survive, he better follow his orders and asked if he understood. He replied yes and wondered why those 2 senior brothers seemed to have a problem with him. 1 day later, Hong announced to everyone that they would be training on the outskirts of the Yaoguang Forbidden Area, an extremely dangerous place for newcomers like them. He told them that each newcomer must obtain 5 Tier 3 Beast Crystals to complete the mission, and those who meet the standard will qualify for the Inner and Outer Disciples assessment. Hong also mentioned that the training would last for 5 days, and everyone must return to the ship by the rooster hour in 5 days. He asked them if they understood, and they all replied yes. Then the ship landed on the ground. Hong informed him that their team would split up to search for beast crystals later, and since he had the lowest cultivation level, he would be with him and Huang Lai, to which he agreed. Before disembarking from the ship, Lai reminded him to stick close to them. He knew that the Yaoguang Forbidden Area was full of danger, and other teams were moving together, making him wonder why their team was splitting up. However, he recalled that they had mentioned Neng causing trouble among the newcomers because he had connections in the inner sect, which made him wonder if Hong and Lai were Neng's connections. A moment later, they arrived on the outskirts of the Yaoguang Forbidden Area. He noticed that they were leading him toward the central forbidden area, although they said they were taking him to find beast crystals. However, before coming there, he had read many books and learned that the central area was filled with high-level ferocious beasts. He knew that creatures like ferocious beasts were classified into ranks from 1 to 10. The first rank of ferocious beasts was equivalent to the human body refinement realm, the second rank to the Kai condensation realm, and the 10th rank to the human martial god realm and above. He was aware that while they could handle 1st to 3rd rank ferocious beasts on the outskirts of the Yaoguang Forbidden Area, the central area housed 4th to 6th rank beasts, beings that even true Kai realm experts couldn't handle. He stopped walking and told them that if they continued forward, they would encounter powerful ferocious beasts, and even true Kai realm cultivators would be in danger. Therefore, they should stop there. However, Hong replied that it was fine and that reaching that point was enough because he could kill him there, and no one would know. He realized that this had happened as he expected and asked them if they were with Wu Neng. Hong acknowledged that he was a clever kid and asked if he was scared now. Lai added that a Kai condensation realm cultivator at the 3rd stage dared to provoke them, and now he was scared. Then Lai jumped forward to attack him while saying it was too late. But he activated his Dragon Fist, telling them that they were just Kai condensation realm cultivators at the 6th stage and asked them if they really thought they could kill him. Lai swung his sword to attack him while saying that a 3rd stage cultivator looking down on a 6th stage should just watch him chop off his head. However, he smiled at Lai, channeling the power of his dragon fist, and punched his fist towards Lai, shattering Lai's sword into pieces and striking Lai in the face. Lai was crushed and dragged away on the ground for quite a distance. He teasingly called Lai's senior brother and told him to rest in peace. Hong worriedly called Huang Lai's name, but Lai had been slammed into the dirt and was dead. Hong wondered how it was possible for Huang Lai, who was at the 6th level of Kai condensation, to be taken down by someone at the 3rd level. Hao immediately ran away, knowing that dealing with a 6th level Kai condensation cultivator might be easy, but Huang Hong was said to be in the true Kai realm, posing a significant threat. He needed to get back to the ship quickly to avoid danger. However, Hong angrily asked him how dare he harm his people and threatened to have him in pieces. Hong jumped forward to attack him while angrily telling him not to run. Hao realized that his situation wasn't good because true Kai realm cultivators were incredibly fast, and if he continued running, he'd definitely be caught. With no choice, he decided to fight to the death and take a gamble. Hong was surprised to see him launching an attack, but instead of attacking Hong, he hit himself. Hong teasingly asked him if he was so scared that he wanted to commit suicide. But Hao turned around and ran away. Hong called him an idiot and reminded him that he was running into the central forbidden area. He emphasized that the central area was filled with powerful ferocious beasts, spelling certain death for anyone who ventured there. However, Hao smiled and told Hong that he'd rather be chased by him, thinking that venturing into the forbidden area might offer a glimmer of hope. Then, he didn't notice a huge snake about to devour him, and when he looked up, it was too late because the massive snake was close to him. The snake swiftly ate him whole and swallowed him immediately. Hong teasingly said, "Good riddance," and thought that someone at the 3rd level of Kai condensation could survive in the central forbidden area when the 4th level Hua Yan Python was even stronger than the true Kai realm. He considered it a foolish move on Hao's part. However, inside the huge snake, Hao was laughing at Hong, who thought he was dead when he was still alive. Before venturing out, Hao had carefully studied the ferocious beasts in the Yaoguang forbidden area. He had read that the essence of blood had a fatal attraction to the Hua Yan Python, so even a small amount of blood might attract the snake. The book also mentioned that when being swallowed by the Hua Yan Python, if they entered its esophagus voluntarily, they wouldn't be bitten to death on the spot. So, he deliberately emitted a bloody smell to lure the Hua Yan Python and have a fighting chance. He believed that Hong must have thought he was dead and had likely left, so his escape from a desperate situation was successful. Although the stomach acid of the Hua Yan Python could turn a person into blood within half an hour, fortunately, the Hua Yan Python had a tough exterior, but a soft interior. He knew that all he needed to do now was break out of its stomach before being eroded by the stomach acid, and he was confident he could make it out alive. The snake felt something inside its body and growled in pain while shaking its body. A moment later, the snake was dead on the ground, and a sword came out of its stomach. He had slashed its skin from the inside and successfully emerged from it alive. He caught his breath and was glad that he not only managed to escape from the Hua Yan Python's belly but also obtained a 4th order beast crystal from the snake, an extremely rare treasure. He carefully placed the crystal inside his coat pocket and was excited because he knew that the entire body of the Hua Yan Python was filled with treasures, and they were all his for the taking. However, the snake's corpse was too large, so he needed to find a place to hide it first. As he contemplated where to hide the snake's body, he felt a chilling wind and wondered where it could be coming from. Was it the cave of the Hua Yan Python? Suddenly, he saw a large shadow, and when he looked back, he noticed numerous monsters heading his way, attacking him. Fortunately, he jumped in time to avoid their attacks. He began to panic, realizing they were 3rd order ferocious beasts known as sky apes. While not as powerful as the Hua Yan Python individually, they often traveled in groups. He wondered if they were attracted by the Hua Yan Python's corpse. Knowing he couldn't escape them in the forest, he had no choice but to venture into the snake's den, so he rushed toward the cave while the apes chased after him. One of the apes came dangerously close to hitting him, but he managed to jump forward to avoid it in the nick of time. He crashed into the cave entrance hard, causing it to collapse behind him. He caught his breath, thinking how close it was, but luckily, he had managed to escape the pursuing apes. However, his relief was short-lived as he felt his body falling down suddenly. Shocked, he realized that the ground beneath him had collapsed, and he fell into darkness. When a drop of liquid fell onto his face, he regained consciousness and slowly tried to sit up. He wondered if he hadn't died, but then he felt something in his hand. Looking down, he was shocked to see that he was holding human bones. As he glanced around, he noticed bones scattered all around him, making him wonder if this place was some kind of battlefield and if it could have once been the site of a great conflict. He gazed at a sword pierced through a shield, with the name Yao Guang, Sheng Zhuang engraved on it, making him ponder if this place could be the remnants of the Yao Guang Holy Land. He remembers that legend has it that in ancient times, there were 7 holy lands on the continent, representing the top 7 martial forces in development. At that time, the Holy Land prospered and powerful individuals were abundant. It was the golden age for martial artists. However, later, an inexplicable massacre swept across the continent, and all 7 great holy lands fell. Today, those 7 great holy lands have become 7 deathly forbidden territories inhabited by various ferocious beasts that are truly lamentable. He proceeds to walk, thinking that although those forbidden lands are extremely dangerous, there are legends of many world-shaking legacies waiting to be discovered inside them. But he knows that he shouldn't be thinking about the legacies right now because his main concern should be how to get out of that eerie place. However, when he peeked in the corner, he was shocked and couldn't believe what he was seeing. Then he rashly ran toward it, still can't believe that there were many earth vein stones there. He thinks, as everyone knows, earth vein stone is even more precious than beast crystals because earth vein stone is formed by the condensation of extremely pure natural energy. Even a fist-sized piece can sell for thousands of gold. Furthermore, earth vein stone can not only be used to enhance cultivation but also to improve the quality of alchemy and weapon refining. Martial artists in the 4 realms often risk their lives for earth vein stones. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a spatial treasure and he can't carry much with him, so he plans to find a way out first. Then he saw a light in the corner where the earth vein stones were, so he walked inside the corner and was shocked to see inside it because he saw a lot of huge crystals around it and someone inside of it in the center, making him wonder what is that place. He notices that the walls of that cave are adorned with many lifelike depictions of the deceased, so he wonders if it could be the tomb left behind by the original Holy Land. He walked to the center to approach the huge crystal in the center and was stunned to see a beautiful woman inside. Then he notices that she looks like a fallen celestial being. Then he heard something on his side and wondered if it was something left behind by the original Yaoguang Holy Land. But he noticed that it looked like a mirror, so he planned to pick it up and take a look. However, when he was close to touching it, it lit up and released a powerful light to grab him, then it took him inside of it. He was thrown on the floor and wondered where is that place, but then he heard someone saying that it had been tens of thousands of years, and someone had finally found it. He searched and asked who was talking. Then the voice told him that they just met a moment ago. He looked up and noticed that it was the woman from the crystal coffin earlier. She told him that when calamity swept across the continent years ago, 9 out of 10 living beings perished, and her Yaoguang Holy Land also fell as a result. She thought the legacy of her Yaoguang sect would be interrupted, but she didn't expect to encounter someone like him today. So, since he entered the Yaoguang Holy Mirror today, it must be fate, and she'll now transmit to him the techniques for controlling the Yaoguang Holy Mirror and the Yaoguang Battle Kai technique. Then a lot of words entered his brain, making him shout in pain, making him wonder what it was because he felt his head like it was about to explode. But then he thought he suddenly understood that she had actually transmitted a vast amount of knowledge into his mind. A few minutes later, the transmission was done, and he now knows that the mirror in front of him is called the Yaoguang Holy Mirror. Also, the Yaoguang Holy Mirror is one of the 7 great artifacts of the Xuanxi continent and is now under his control. It can gather spiritual energy from all directions within the mirror, making cultivation inside it twice as efficient. Now, he has also mastered the top-tier technique of the Yaoguang Holy Land, the Yaoguang Battle Kai technique. The Yaoguang Battle Kai technique has 9 layers, each doubling one's combat strength, achieving perfection by multiplying it by 9. However, the cost is extremely high energy consumption, and with the energy he currently has within him, he probably can't activate the Yaoguang Battle Kai technique even once. But the Yaoguang Battle Kai technique can be powered by an item with a high energy content. For example, the earth vein stone outside the cave can be used as an energy source to activate the Yaoguang Battle Kai technique, and the multiplier effect of the Yaoguang Battle Kai technique is related to the gemstone on the mirror's surface. Out of the 9 gemstones on the mirror, 8 are damaged, and 1 is lit, which means he can only double his combat strength. To multiply it further in the future, he'll need to repair the remaining gemstones. He lifts his feet up and flies to mid-air, knowing that the fact that he can now freely control the Yaoguang Holy Mirror as a spatial artifact is incredible. He thinks he has stumbled upon a top-tier treasure. He kneeled on the ground and thanked the woman for her guidance, then swore to remember her great kindness for a lifetime. She told him that there was no need to thank her, and in the future, he only needs to keep that place a secret. Also, she told him that next, she'll tell him the way to leave because he can now depart from that place, to which he replied yes while thinking that it seems that the fairy was a powerful individual from the ancient era, and receiving the legacy is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He said his farewell to his senior, but she just looked at him, vanished, and smiled coldly. He comes out of the cave thinking that now he has the Yao Guang Holy Mirror. He can do many things because the Yao Guang Holy Mirror is a vast space, and any object he touches can be placed inside the mirror. In other words, he now has a large-scale spatial treasure. Then he touched every earth vein stone there, thinking that they were all his, and he had truly struck it rich. 1 hour later, where the earth vein stones were before, it was empty, and in the world inside the mirror, all the earth vein stones were with him. He was excitedly thinking that with so many earth vein stones, he was now a wealthy person, and even if he uses them as the energy source for the Yao Guang Battle Kai technique, they'll last a long time. 4 days later, he came out of the cave, thinking that the underground place was so complex that even with the guidance of the fairy, it took a long time to find the exit. Suddenly, the sky apes appeared in front of him and surrounded him while growling at him, but he just kept quiet and didn't respond, making one of the apes ask the other apes why he wasn't afraid of them. He told the apes that they were running very fast before he saw them wandering around and asked them why they were leaving now. He also told them that maybe just a few days ago, he was the one being hunted, but now he was the one hunting. This made the apes very angry, and they raised their hands to attack him. Meanwhile, he was planning to try the power of the Yao Guang Battle Kai technique. Then, he activated his dragon fist and attacked the apes with it, along with the Yao Guang Battle Kai technique. This created a loud explosion, and the apes fell to the ground, seriously injured, causing the other apes to hide behind the trees in fear. He was amazed at how powerful it was, but it also saddened him. He reminded himself that using the Yao Guang Battle Kai technique consumes a lot of energy. Just now, he used it once, and it used up an earth vein stone worth tens of thousands of gold. He was furious that one punch cost him 10,000 gold, and he knew he needed to finish it quickly. So, he ran toward the apes who were running away from him in fear and attacked while keeping track of how much gold he was spending on each attack. A minute later, the last remaining ape fell down, and he was relieved that he had dealt with the savage ape beasts. He thought that even though he obtained many third-order beast crystals, it still cost him over 100,000 gold earth vein stones, which was quite painful. However, compared to the total amount of earth vein stones in the sacred mirror, it was just a small amount. Their time for the journey outside was almost over, as it was time to return and surprise Huang Hong. Meanwhile, on the ship, someone announced that their journey outside was coming to an end, and each team leader should report their numbers. The team leaders reported that there were no casualties in their teams, but one person in their team was injured, and nobody died. Hong reported angrily that their junior disciple, Lu Hao, had died because he didn't listen to advice and entered the central forbidden area. Additionally, Huang Lai had also died. The others were shocked when they heard this news, as they knew that going into the forbidden area meant certain death. The teacher, with a disappointed tone, told Hong to accept their condolences for the loss. However, suddenly, Hao, in a teasing manner, asked who said he was dead, which surprised Hong. Hao explained that Hong deliberately left him in the forbidden area and falsely accused him of trespassing in the central region, which hurt him deeply. Hong, in anger, questioned how Hao could still be alive, wondering if he hadn't been devoured by the python. But Hao whispered to Hong that the more he wished for his death, the more determined he was to outlive him. Loudly, Hao stated that he knew his power was currently limited, and even if Hong exposed his plan against him, it would be futile. However, he promised to repay Hong in the future. Hong was frustrated that they couldn't eliminate Hao, knowing that it wouldn't be easy to do anything when they returned to the sect. The old man responded by saying that as long as Hao was back, it was acceptable. He then instructed everyone to check the number of beast crystals they had collected during the journey. Anyone with less than 3 crystals wouldn't be eligible to participate in the inner and outer disciple assessments. Participants began to share how many crystals they had. Hong was confident that Hao had somehow escaped the forbidden area, but in reality, Hao didn't have any beast crystals. So, as long as Hao couldn't pass the inner and outer disciple assessments, he would have to remain in the outer sect, giving Hong more opportunities to deal with him. But then, Hao surprised everyone by throwing a large number of crystals in front of the teacher. He proudly declared that he had 23rd order beast crystals. This left everyone, including Hong, in shock. Hong, filled with anger, demanded to know how that was even possible and where he had obtained so many beast crystals. The teacher questioned if Hao had cheated, as the strongest disciples present had only 5 beast crystals. Hao reminded them that Hong had just mentioned that Huang Lai had sacrificed himself for him earlier. It was Huang Lai who had protected him at all costs and allowed him to escape from the beasts. He explained that when he obtained those crystals, Huang Lai was surrounded by the beasts, and he had told Hao to live on in his place. So, all his beast crystals were thanks to Huang Lai's sacrifice. He teasingly asked Hong if that wasn't true, and Hong, feeling cornered, reluctantly agreed. The other leaders were moved by Hao's story and expressed that they had never expected the source of those beast crystals to be so touching. This only fueled Hong's anger because Hao had used his own lies against him. The teacher, deeply moved by Hao's story, enthusiastically announced that he was now the #1 on the venture outdoors. He respectfully thanked his elder, and people cheered for him from behind. Other participants praised Hao, calling him strong and handsome. Additionally, Hao was the first disciple to return alive from the central part of the forbidden area. This made Hong furious, and in his mind, he warned Hao not to become too proud. After all, his uncle was an elder of the sect, so even if Hao became an inner disciple in the future, Hong believed he could still deal with him. Later, in the Mystic Sword sect, he walked and thought about how it was time for Zemo to decide if he needed more strength and should stay in the sect for further training. He wondered how Zemo was doing. Suddenly, he overheard someone telling Zemo that his friend, Lu Hao, must have died in the Yaoguang forbidden area. This person advised Zemo to give up the Kai condensation pill quickly. However, Zemo firmly believed it was impossible because he had faith that Hao was still alive. He had promised Hao that he would never give in, no matter what. The person, named Neng, pulled out a knife while taunting Zemo for acting tough all of a sudden, suggesting that as his senior brother had taught him some real combat techniques. But then, Hao grabbed Neng's hand and asked if he really wanted to exchange combat techniques. Neng angrily asked who he was, and Hao revealed that he was the supposedly dead man Neng had been talking about. This shocked Neng, who let go of his knife and questioned why Hao wasn't dead when Hong had sworn that he had finished him. Hao just smiled and effortlessly lifted Neng with one hand, leaving Neng shouting in disbelief. Hao then forcefully slammed Neng onto the ground, causing him to cough up blood and scream in pain. He suggested to Neng that instead of discussing combat techniques with Zemo, he might as well do it with him. Hao punched Neng in the face, knocking out one of Neng's teeth, and Neng slumped to the ground. After that, Hao kicked the 2 men who were with Neng and threw them aside while holding onto Neng's clothes. He slammed Neng into the other 2 men like they were pieces of paper, turning the tables on the 3 men who had been bullying Zemo. Then, he released Neng, and after their exchange, Neng, feeling dizzy, remarked that he had seen enough of his stupidity. He expressed his gratitude to Neng, acknowledging that their evenly matched practical combat exchange was very beneficial to him. Zemo, who witnessed everything, wondered what he meant by evenly matched when it appeared he was defeating them single-handedly. Then, he proudly looked at Zemo and remarked that Zemo looks cool when he doesn't give in. Zemo, shyly, replied that it was all thanks to what he had learned from him, while Neng, peeking back at them, told them to just wait for him. 10 days later, he emerged from the sacred mirror, amazed that, in those 10 days, he had absorbed 4th order beast crystals from the flower Rocky Python within the sacred mirror. Additionally, he broke through to the 4th level of Kai condensation and regained 2 meridians. He realized he had 1 heritage meridian and 6 ordinary meridians. Moreover, there were signs of a 2nd heritage meridian opening. But he felt like something was missing. Suddenly, Zemo opened the door, astonished to see him back. Then, Zemo excitedly asked him how he managed to break through to the 4th level of Kai condensation so swiftly. He replied that it was nothing special, he had simply broken through by chance. Zemo called him modest and declared that he would work hard to catch up with him. Zemo then mentioned that a guy named Gu Chen had visited during the past few days. Chen said he was investigating on behalf of the inner sect and advised him that, when it came time to choose an inner sect master, he should be sure not to choose Tai Yun Peak, which left him confused for a moment. He remembered that in the Mystic Sword sect's inner sect, there are 4 peaks and 1 valley: Fei Xing Peak, Hao Yu Peak, Tai Yun Peak, Xuan Jian Peak, and the Alchemy Dan Valley. Each disciple entering the inner sect must eventually join one of these 5 major forces. Except for the Alchemy Dan Valley, which specializes in alchemy, the other peaks primarily focus on martial arts. Each peak has its own inheritance, and regardless of which one a disciple chooses, there is potential to become a strong martial artist. He thought, although all 4 peaks are formidable, Chen insists that Tai Yun Peak should be avoided, making him wonder why Chen wants him to steer clear of it. A moment later, after gathering some information in the sect, he overheard someone mentioning that among the 4 peaks and 1 valley of their sect, many interesting stories abound. He recalled hearing that the other peaks boast a thriving population, yet Tai Yun Peak's inheritance has dwindled to just 2 individuals, the peak master Zhang Wenchen and the disciple Mo Feifen. Then, he spotted someone carrying 2 large stones, walking peacefully up the stairs, which made him wonder if it was Feifen. He remembered another disciple mentioning that Feifen was once the sect leader's disciple and had cultivated to the Yellow Extreme realm. Feifen was among the top talents in the sect, but, tragically, 10 years ago, his cultivation was crippled by someone. Consequently, Feifen was abandoned by the sect leader and had to transfer from Xuan Jian Peak to Tai Yun Peak. Rushing closer to Feifen, he empathized with the hardship of being crippled, having experienced it himself, and introduced himself to Feifen as Hao Lu. He then offered Feifen help, but Feifen insisted that it was unnecessary, and asked him to keep his distance. Nonetheless, he took one of the stones, insisting that Feifen should be polite and allow him to help. Considering Feifen's condition, he thought lifting heavy objects would be challenging for him. However, upon shouldering the stone, he was taken aback when one of his feet sunk in the stair due to the immense pressure. Surprised by the weight, he realized that even at the 4th level of Kai condensation, he couldn't lift it, leaving him puzzled about how Feifen could manage without any cultivation. Feifen assured him he could handle it, mentioning an incident where another disciple attempted to move it and ended up with a broken waist. As Feifen reached for the stone, asking for it back, he, with trembling legs, insisted it was no trouble. Then, he hurried up the stairs, breaking them in his haste, and called out to Feifen, proclaiming he could handle it. Then, he swiftly leaped to reach the top immediately, leaving Feifen wondering about the feat. Feifen was aware that under the master's domain of formidable aura, the other disciples couldn't lift anything. However, he was surprised to see that Lu Hao could actually run. Feifen thanked him but mentioned that he would need to compensate for the steps he had damaged. In response, Lu Hao only shouted because he had collided with something, eliciting a smile from Feifen, who thought Lu Hao was quite interesting. A moment later, Lu Hao was at the top, shaking in pain, relieved that he had finally finished running. He couldn't believe that Feifen was able to carry such heavy objects up the mountain and, feeling sore, decided to go to the Xuanjian sect trading market to buy some ointment. Upon arriving at the Xuanjian sect trading market, he observed that it resembled less of a market and more of a place where everyone was selling their own items. Then, he spotted something red on the ground and realized it was the divine dragon bloodstone. He recalled learning in the main clan that such stones, originating from ancient ruins, are capable of awakening the energy within a warrior's body, leading him to speculate that it might help unlock his second inherited martial vein. He inquired about the price of the stone, guessing it might be 1 gold. But the owner demanded 100 gold. Despite his ignorance of its purpose, Lu Hao was prepared to pay 100 gold for it. He accused the owner of extortion, protesting the idea of selling a seemingly worthless rock for 100 gold. The owner snatched the stone from his hand, telling him to leave if he wasn't going to make a purchase, as not to hinder his business. Suddenly, someone approached and handed the owner a bag of gold, stating she would purchase it for Lu Hao. Turning around, he saw that it was Zu'er. The owner, seizing the bag of gold from Zu'er, handed the stone to Lu Hao, thanking them for their business, which irritated Lu Hao as he noted how quickly someone's expression could change. Then, as Zu'er waved goodbye and began to leave, Lu Hao asked her to wait and inquired why she had helped him. She answered that the reason was not important and mentioned that he simply reminded her of a childhood friend, making Lu Hao wonder if Zu'er could remember him after so many years had passed. He knew that Zu'er wasn't originally from the Lu family. His parents had found her during an outing, making her, besides his parents, the only one he could call family. He then thanked her and vowed to repay her kindness in the future. Zu'er glanced back at him, certain he was the companion from her childhood, having spent so much time with him. However, she noticed his desire to conceal his identity and refrain from acknowledging her. Understanding he had his reasons, she decided to pretend not to recognize him for the time being. Later, in the back mountain of the Xuanjian sect, inside the mirror, Lu Hao was focused on his cultivation. He had successfully absorbed the divine dragon bloodstone, releasing a strong aura to test its effects. With the absorption of the divine dragon bloodstone, he knew he could easily advance to the 9th level of the condensation realm. Emerging from the mirror, he was overjoyed to find that the second inherited martial vein had also been unlocked, and, coupled with the Golden Dragon 9 transformation technique, he had achieved the 2nd level of mastery. He stood up and approached a huge stone to test his enhanced 2nd level martial technique. Positioning himself for the Dragon Fist technique, he struck the massive stone. His attack penetrated the stone, causing it to crack. Then, the stone shattered into pieces and collapsed. He jumped away just in time, realizing the power he wielded, and speculated that Long Zhang's 4 Wilds technique was probably twice as strong as the Dragon Fist. He smiled, pleased with himself, knowing he now had a trump card for the assessment of both inner and outer disciples. Later, he returned to the outer disciple dormitory, humming with happiness. Excitedly opening their room door, he began to tell his roommate Zemo about the food he brought, only to be shocked at the sight of Zemo lying on the ground, severely injured and bleeding. Dropping the food in panic, he immediately tried to rouse Zemo to find out what had happened. But Zemo was unresponsive, which sent him into a further panic. He shakily checked Zemo's chest to see if he was still alive. Suddenly, other disciples, also in a state of panic, informed him that he had finally returned and that Zemo had been beaten to death by the Enforcer's Hall. He asked them why and if Zemo had committed a crime. One disciple, fearfully, replied that he didn't know the specifics but had heard the Enforcers claim Zemo's crime was the forcible theft of Wu Neng's Kai Gathering Pill, leaving him stunned in shock. Then, he burst out laughing, shouting about the absurdity of the accusation. questioning how Zemo, known for his honesty and good behavior, could have stolen Neng's pill. When the man inquired about his thoughts, he simply requested they look after Zemo for him, which made the man panic and ask what he intended to do. Walking outside, with Zemo's blood on his shoes, he stated his intention to visit the Enforcer's Hall and see for himself. A moment later, at the Outer Disciples Enforcer's Hall, he approached the gate, undeterred by the rain. He politely asked the two guards if they had seen Zemo. One replied that they had all witnessed Zemo at the Enforcer's Hall, noting that Zemo trembled with fear as he was killed, while the other guard laughingly commented on the amusement of Zemo's death. Enraged, he struck both men in the face, understanding all he needed to. The guards were thrown inside the Enforcer's Hall, breaking the door in the process. An official immediately emerged from the room, demanding to know the cause of the commotion. Upon seeing the two guards, now severely injured and embedded in the wall of the room, the official was taken aback. As he advanced towards them, the official, in a shout, questioned if he was Lu Hao, daring to cause trouble in the Enforcer's Hall, and if he was aware of where he was. He responded that he was indeed aware, but his intention was to challenge the entire Enforcer's Hall, regardless of the consequences, his eyes burning with anger. Meanwhile, in the room, Neng is pouring tea into the cup and telling his friend how today's revenge against Lu Hao was so satisfying because they concocted some random charges to have Zemo killed. As Neng was about to drink his tea, someone threw a man into the room, hitting Neng and his friend in the process. Neng was thrown against the wall, while his friend was thrown to the other side. Panicked, Neng shouted, asking what was going on, but then someone grabbed Neng's neck and pinned him against the wall hard. Neng asked him if he was here for Zemo and begged him to spare him because Zemo's death had nothing to do with him. However, Lu Hao just glared at Neng in anger and gathered his power in his fist, telling Neng that he could explain his excuses to the King of Hell. Then, he punched Neng with his dragon fist, causing a loud explosion. Thunder appeared in the sky, angry, showing Neng sunk into the wall, dead. He softly told Zemo that he had avenged him and that he should rest in peace. Suddenly, someone walked inside, laughing, and asked what he meant by revenge. Hong asked if he really thought an outer disciple like Neng could command the Enforcer's Hall to kill someone. Then Hong explained that he had allowed Neng to take the blame for killing Zemo, but it was all his doing, calling him an idiot, which left him surprised and in disbelief. Hong teasingly asked who had allowed him to hold a grudge against him and said that he didn't care about grudges from ordinary people. However, the fact that he had escaped from the Forbidden Zone meant that he couldn't be underestimated. Hong also told him that to prevent him from seeking revenge in the future, he had deliberately had Neng kill Zemo to provoke him, but he hadn't expected him to dare to create chaos in the Enforcer's Hall. Then Hong grabbed his sword and said that he finally had a reason to kill him. Hong jumped toward him and launched his sword to stab him in the face. Fortunately, he jumped a little to the side in time, and Hong's sword hit his shoulder instead. Hong told him that he must be strangled in the cradle. Then Hong forcefully pushed him using the sword pierced into his shoulder and slammed him against the wall. He shouted in pain, but Hong just teasingly asked him how it felt and told him that being at the Mir Kai gathering stage meant daring to cause trouble in the Enforcer's Hall was simply seeking death. He tried to endure the pain, but he noticed his vision was slowly fading, even though he was trying to focus. Suddenly, he heard Zemo calling his name continuously the night before going out for training, telling him to hold on a bit longer because he couldn't sleep just yet. He had asked Zemo if he was not asleep yet and why he was working so hard when he was not going out for training. Zemo replied that there was no choice, and even if he was tired, he had to persevere. Then Zemo told him that his family was very poor and he had a grandfather and a younger sister waiting for him at home. So in order to provide a good life for his family, he must persevere no matter how tired he was. Zemo then handed over the book to him and told him that after he had taught him not to be weak, it was now his turn to help him. Zemo also smilingly told him that no matter what, he should hold on a little longer. He remembered that initially, it was Zemo who stayed up with him all night studying, which allowed him to survive in the Yao Guang Forbidden Land using the knowledge. But he knew that Zemo had taught him more than just knowledge. Then, he grabbed the sword with his bare hand, surprising Hong. He released his aura, remembering that Zemo also taught him that no matter what, he must persevere. Hong was surprised and wondered how he could withstand his strike when he was only at the Kai condensation stage. He gathered his power in his hand and told Hong that despite holding a position in the law enforcement hall, he used his power to kill. After gathering the power of the flower and his dragon fist technique in his hand, he launched it at Hong while shouting that even if it cost his life, he would take him down with him. Hong was surprised to see that kind of power and got hit in the face. Hong shouted in pain and was thrown hard. When Hong hit the wall, he pierced through it and then through another wall because of the strong force from Lu Hao's attack. Hong wondered how it was possible, how Lu Hao could withstand a blow from his true Kai realm without dying, and noticed that Lu Hao's strength had increased. Suddenly, he appeared above Hong and told him that it was not over yet. Then, he grabbed Hong's neck and slammed him down on the ground, telling him that he would make him pay for Zemo's life. Then, he dragged Hong to the ground and burst out of the hall, leaving everyone outside surprised. Hong wondered what power it was and how someone at the Kai condensation stage could render him helpless, but he tearfully knew that if it continued, he would probably die. Then, he launched his fist to finish Hong, but something stopped him in time, and he heard someone shouting, asking who was causing chaos within the Xuan sword sect. Then, he felt his whole body being stopped, and when he looked up, he saw a man asking him if he was causing trouble for no reason and planning to kill in public. Wang Yu, the elder of the Xuan sword sect and Huang Hong's uncle, asked him if he had no respect for the rules of the Xuan sword sect. Hong, shaking, crawled toward his uncle, begging him to save him while thinking he had a chance now that his elder uncle was there. On the other hand, he wondered if Yu had used a Kai field to immobilize him. He knew that Righteous Kai is an ability that can only be used in the true Kai realm and above. It's when a martial artist channels their inner spiritual energy, compresses it, and uses it to amplify the power of their attacks, whether through punches or weapons. However, a Kai field is a skill that can only be utilized in the saintly martial realm and above. It's when a martial artist releases a substantial amount of their Kai to form an invisible energy field, used to suppress opponents with lower cultivation levels, making him guess if Yu was a saintly martial realm expert. Yu, angrily, told him that he had heard he caused trouble in the law enforcement hall and had come specifically for this matter. He then reminded him that he should know, within the sect, killing someone leads to the death penalty according to the sect's rules, and asked him if he realized his crime. The people around them couldn't believe that the newcomer had killed someone from the law enforcement hall, and they all knew it was a heinous crime. Hong teasingly asked him if he was scared now and told him that he would die without his intervention for daring to cause chaos in the law enforcement hall. He stands up, smiling, and asks Hong what he means by fear. He tells them that he dared to come to the law enforcement hall because he never intended to leave alive in the first place. Then, he shouts for everyone to hear, telling them that Huang Hong allowed his subordinates to unjustly kill his roommate, Zemo. He also says that if he has to die for killing someone, then Huang Hong should also face the death penalty. He then pointed to Hong, who was surprised, and told everyone that if they didn't believe him, his roommate had tragically died in the dorm, and there were many outer sect disciples who could testify to it. Hong shakes in fear and calls his uncle, Yu. Yu whispers to Hong that, in the future, he should act cleanly and without leaving any problems. Then, Yu angrily asks Hong how he can favor him. Then, they hear the disciples asking if it was true that Hong also committed murder in secret, and one of the men tells everyone that, according to the sect's rules, Hong should also face punishment. Yu realizes that Lu Hao wants to drag his nephew down with him. Then, Yu puts his hand on his nephew Hong's shoulder while telling them that since both parties are at fault, according to the sect's rules, one of them must die. Yu suggests to them to have a life and death duel in the spirit of nurturing talents. Then, Yu explains that in a life and death duel, one of them can survive, and the previous grievances and punishments can be resolved. Yu asks Lu Hao what he says about it. He agrees because he could openly kill Hong in front of everyone and tells Yu that he couldn't ask for more. Then, Yu tells everyone that they should disperse and, in 3 days, they should all meet on the life and death duel stage. Hong begs his uncle not to do it and tells Yu that he doesn't think he can defeat Lu Hao. Yu hits his nephew's forehead and whispers to Hong to shut up, explaining that if he doesn't do it, both of them would die. But Yu clarifies to Hong that he'll help him kill Lu Hao and asks Hong what there is to fear, making Hong smile and laughingly thank his uncle while teasingly looking at Hong. Afterward, news of the life and death duel between the outer sect newcomer, Lu Hao, and the inner sect disciple, Huang Hong, spread throughout the entire sect, with everyone believing that the newcomer Lu Hao was bound to die. Meanwhile, Lu Hao was at Zemo's grave, paying respects to his passed-away roommate. He realized that he had managed to use his dragon bloodline with extreme anger to almost kill Hong with his Kai condensation cultivation earlier. But now, knowing that Hong was confident he would win the life and death duel, Lu Hao understood that rushing in recklessly would certainly lead to his death. Then, he went inside the mirror where all his treasures were stored, and wondered if he could shatter their dreams completely by breaking through to the true Kai realm within 3 days. 3 days later, he was still inside the sacred mirror, focusing on breaking through. A moment later, he felt elated that he had successfully broken through to the first level of the true Kai realm. Then, he came out of the sacred mirror and looked at Zemo's tomb, knowing that even if a true Kai realm expert stood before him, he could hold his own. He swore to Zemo that he would definitely avenge him. Later, on the life and death duel stage, the host shouted that the newcomer was indeed there and was not afraid of death. Yu smiled and told everyone that now that Lu Hao had arrived, they should let the life and death duel officially begin. Hong arrogantly called him a kid and told him that a few days ago, he had managed to barely defeat him with his Kai condensation cultivation. Hong admitted it was his mistake, but asserted that today, there was no way Lu Hao could win. Then, Hong proudly displayed his strong cultivation aura and power. The disciples watching are surprised to see Hong release such a strong aura, knowing that Hong is only at the first level of the true Kai realm. This prompts them to question how Hong advanced to the third level in just a few days. Yu proudly smiles and angrily asks Lu Hao how he dares to come to a life and death duel without employing some tricks. Yu knows that Hong has taken enhancing elixirs and thinks that if it was true that someone at the first level of true Kai could still be defeated by condensed Kai, then at the third level, there would be no chance of defeat. Hong charges at him, attacking while shouting for him to go down and accompany his good brother, Zemo. Seeing Hong's strength, the disciples think there is no need to watch anymore because the next part is definitely going to be a one-sided massacre. However, they are then shocked to see Hong being thrown away by a simple punch, landing heavily on the ground. This leaves Yu and the disciples astonished at how easily Hong was thrown. Hong must have been careless again, he thought, convinced that a mere condensed Kai realm could not defeat him. Hong then draws his sword, thinking that fortunately, he still had the supreme quality sword his uncle gave him. The disciples are amazed to see Hong wielding a supreme quality sword, realizing that even against someone at the fourth level of true Kai, Hong now had a fighting chance. Nevertheless, the disciples are skeptical that Lu Hao can still win. Yu smiles, thinking it was fortunate he held back a bit. Weapons are divided into 6 grades: ordinary, supreme quality, world-shaking, supreme, peerless, and divine artifacts. The higher the weapon grade, the greater its power. Some divine artifacts can level a city with a single strike, and supreme quality weapons can significantly boost the user's strength by 1 level. This means that even now, Hong can take on someone at the 4th level of true Kai and can kill with confidence. Then, with the sword in front, Hong launches toward Lu Hao, shouting for him to die. Hong confidently thought that his righteous Kai-imbued sword strike was an invincible move and that even Lu Hao couldn't withstand it. However, when Lu Hao launched his fist and struck the sword shattered into pieces, and his punch directly hit Hong's stomach, causing a loud explosion and throwing Hong far away. Hong hit the stage, causing a loud explosion. You couldn't believe that the supreme quality sword was actually shattered by Lu Hao. Similarly astonished, the disciples questioned how it was possible for someone as strong as Hong, who was at the 4th level of true Kai, to be defeated by Lu Hao. They wondered what kind of power Lu Hao possessed to shatter a supreme quality sword with 1 punch. Yu shouted that it was impossible and accused him of cheating with some enhancing elixir, questioning how someone in the condensed Kai realm could be that strong without cheating. Lu Hao smiled and retorted to Yu, asking who said he was in the condensed Kai realm. Then, he showcased his cultivation power and proudly announced that he was in the true Kai realm, leaving everyone surprised because they couldn't believe he had advanced to the true Kai realm so quickly, wondering if he wasn't just at the condensed Kai level 3 days ago. Lu Hao smiled, knowing that the Golden Dragon's 9 transformations could enhance his physical defense as his cultivation progressed. Now that he had broken through to the true Kai realm, his physical strength had naturally improved further. Then, he charged at Hong, aware that attacks below the 5th level of true Kai were simply not a threat to him. He grabbed Hong's shoulder, pinning him down to the ground, and punched him with his other hand, causing a loud explosion. Despite Hong's shouts for help, knowing that if the assault continued he would die, he begged his uncle Yu to save him. Yu shouted that it was enough, proclaiming Lu Hao the victor of the life and death battle. He offered Lu Hao 100 Kai gathering pills and 100,000 gold coins to spare Hong. The disciples were amazed, knowing that those rewards could have taken Lu Hao several decades to collect, and they believed Hong didn't have to die. However, Lu Hao dismissively called Yu an old dog and declared that even if Yu offered him the world, he wouldn't accept it. Then, he launched his fist with all his might at Hong, shouting that Hong had to pay for his brother's life. As the fog from his attack slowly faded, Lu Hao declared that it was an eye for an eye, and now, the grudge between him and Hong was settled. The disciples were astonished that he could resist the temptation and didn't spare Hong, recognizing his resolve. Yu, furious, proclaimed himself a peak elder in the holy martial realm and questioned how Lu Hao dared to kill his nephew. He threatened to kill Lu Hao then and there, but Lu Hao countered, reminding Yu that he had set the rules for the life and death battle and was now reneging on them. He teasingly questioned if the Xuanjian sect elders always changed their minds so easily. Lu Hao confidently dared Yu to kill him, suggesting that doing so would only prove Yu to be a shameless scoundrel, and he was curious to see if Yu was willing to sacrifice his reputation. Yu, glaring and clenching his teeth in anger, knew that everyone in the sect recognized Lu Hao's killing of Hong as justified. Any action against Lu Hao would lead to widespread condemnation. Lu Hao turned around, remarking that cowardly dogs can only bark, and announced his departure. The disciples began to praise Lu Hao, proclaiming him the strongest among the outer disciples. Amidst the cheering, someone carefully observed Lu Hao, questioning why his technique in the life and death battle seemed so similar to their clan's Golden Dragon 9 transformations. Lu Jian responded to the man named Lu Wu, agreeing on the similarity, but noting that Lu Hao's technique appeared much more powerful. He mentioned that the Golden Dragon's 9 transformations were considered a useless skill within their clan and speculated that Lu Hao might have secretly learned other techniques from their clan. Jian then instructed Wu to find an opportunity to force Lu Hao to reveal his technique, to which Wu excitedly agreed. Afterward, the news of Lu Hao, an outer disciple, defeating the inner disciple Huang Hong, spread throughout the entire Xuanjian sect. As for Lu Hao, he poured water into Zemo's tomb as a sign of respect and love, telling Zemo to go ahead. 1 month later, Lu Hao was practicing, thinking that there were only 3 days left until the assessment for inner and outer disciples. He knew that after a month of intensive training in front of the mirror, he had reached the 3rd level of True Kai, making him almost certain of passing the assessment. However, he was aware that in the True Kai realm, he would be able to use Gang Kai. He realized that from his last battle with Hong, it was clear that his Gang Kai significantly enhanced a warrior's attack power. Unfortunately, he was the only one among the outer disciples who had reached the True Kai realm, and no one could teach him how to use Gang Kai. While busy thinking that he needed to enter the inner sect to learn, someone approached him. Lu Wu called him a scoundrel, asking him where he had been hiding for the past month and telling him that he wouldn't get away today. He asked Wu who he was and what he wanted from him, but the truth was he knew who Lu Wu was and wondered how Lu Wu had found him. Wu told him that he had seen the technique he used in the life and death battle with Hong last time and accused him of stealing the Lu family's technique. Then, Wu angrily demanded that he hand over the technique immediately, or else he would break his legs. However, he just apologized to Wu while walking away, telling Wu that he had no idea what he was talking about. He thought it fortunate that he had been away from the main clan for many years and that Wu didn't recognize who he was. Wu released his Kai while shouting at him not to pretend, or else he shouldn't blame him for not being polite. He felt that Wu's Kai was Gang Kai. Suddenly, Wu launched at him, asking if he was afraid upon seeing Gang Kai and telling him that his specialty was Gang Kai. So, if he didn't hand over the technique soon, he would tear him apart with Gang Kai. He simply stepped aside to avoid Wu's attack and noticed that Wu's Kai was flowing through the meridians into the Danshan. Then he figured out that this was how Gang Kai is used and realized that he had learned something. Wu, who managed not to fall, told him that he had a lot of courage and asked if he was attempting to learn righteousness through his attacks. Then, clenching his teeth in anger and shouting, Wu told him that today, he would make sure he learned his lesson. Wu launched a dragon technique to attack him once more, but he just clenched his fist, deciding to give it a try too, as he had observed it a few more times. He gathered some of his cultivation in his fist and launched it forward at Wu, but Wu stopped when he noticed that Lu Hao's cultivation was stronger than his. His fist was near Wu's face, but Wu couldn't move, shocked, and when his fist was only 1 inch away from Wu, Wu's face changed expression as if a strong wind had hit it. Meanwhile, Chen was running with the man, asking if he had said that Lu Wu had come to find Lu Hao. The man replied that he saw Lu Wu attacking Lu Hao with his own eyes. But before they could get closer to where Lu Hao was practicing, they heard a loud explosion from it, making them stop and cover their faces to protect themselves from the force of the explosion. The man told Chen that they were still fighting, making Chen worried because he had been in the Neiman for so long and understood the strength of Neiman disciples. Chen knew that Neiman disciples not only had better talent than outer sect disciples but also had abundant cultivation resources and guidance from renowned teachers, so once they started fighting, the outer sect would undoubtedly lose. Chen also thought that Lu Wu, a Kai realm expert at the 5th level, and someone even he, at the 2nd level of the Kai realm, dared not provoke, while Lu Hao was just from the outer sect. Then, Chen ran swiftly to where Lu Hao was, praying that Lu Hao was okay. Upon arriving at the scene, he immediately warned Lu Wu not to harm Lu Hao. However, he was stunned in shock when he saw Lu Wu on the ground, severely beaten, with Lu Hao standing over him. Wu groaned in pain and then fainted, leaving Chen and the man with their mouths agape, wondering what had happened. Lu Hao looked back and told Chen that it had been a long time since he had seen him. Chen acknowledged that Wu was indeed a 5th level Kai realm expert and asked Lu Hao if he had defeated Wu. Lu Hao replied that Wu was indeed skilled, and he had learned Wu's energy with just 1 move. Chen couldn't believe that Lu Hao had learned Wu's Kai energy just now and asked if he could really defeat a Kai realm expert like Lu Wu after learning it so quickly. Then, Chen expressed disbelief, saying it was not possible because he had heard Lu Hao was only at the 1st level of the Kai realm, and it would be too terrifying if someone at the 1st level could beat the 5th level. However, Lu Hao revealed that he was at the 3rd level of the Kai realm and proudly told Chen that the 1st level was his strength just a month ago. Chen, in disbelief, shouted, asking if it meant Lu Hao had increased 2 levels in just a month. The man with Chen remarked that his talent was more terrifying than being able to surpass a 5th level opponent. Then, Chen, feeling defeated, told Lu Hao that he had struggled to break through to the 2nd level of the Kai realm after practicing in the Niemen for so long, but Lu Hao had surpassed him. Chen then asked how Lu Hao had cultivated so quickly, to which Lu Hao, sweating, replied that people had always said he was gifted, making Chen remember that he always felt like Lu Hao was hiding something. Then, Chen and the man helped Lu Wu walk away, while Chen told Lu Hao that, looking at it now, he was secure in passing the assessment for both Niemen and Weimen disciples this time. Chen then reminded him about his previous advice that when he enters the Niemen, he shouldn't choose Tai Yunfeng because if he does, his life might be over. Lu Hao agreed and swore to Chen that he definitely wouldn't choose Tai Yunfeng. Chen smiled at him and walked away, telling him that they would see each other next time. As night fell at Yu's palace, Yu inquired whether Lu Hao had truly reached the 3rd level of the Kai realm and pondered if this achievement would make Lu Hao invincible in the upcoming assessment. Yu considered that once Lu Hao passed the assessment and became a Niemen disciple, it would become difficult to act against him. Consequently, Yu ordered the man previously with Chen to hire an assassin from the Killer's Temple, specifically one at the 5th level of the Kai realm, instructing him not to worry about the details. The man agreed and promptly left to carry out Yu's orders. Yu's intention was for the assassin to disguise himself as an outer sect disciple, participate in the assessment, and ensure Lu Hao's elimination during the competition. 3 days later, the elder announced to the outer disciples that the biennial assessment for Niemen and Weimen disciples was commencing once again. He explained that, as in previous years, the assessment would be conducted through arena battles. Selected disciples would defend the arena, awaiting challenges from their peers. Those who succeeded in the challenge would become the new arena master, in turn waiting for others to challenge them. At the assessment's conclusion, the top 50 disciples with outstanding records would qualify for entry into the Niemen. Following the explanation, the elder officially started the Niemen and Weimen disciple assessment, prompting cheers from the disciples. They began to engage in combat to demonstrate their worthiness, fighting fiercely as the spectators watched every match with keen interest. Lu Hao, observing from the back, noticed the lively atmosphere around each arena. However, he found it peculiar that there were no challengers beneath his arena. Walking around the arena alone, he speculated whether his intimidating reputation deterred potential challengers, leading him to find the assessment uneventful. But then, an individual cloaked in a cape approached, declaring a challenge to him. The disciples saw it and couldn't believe that a newcomer dared to challenge Lu Hao, whom even Niemen's disciples couldn't beat, making them wonder if that person wanted to get beaten. Lu Hao happily said, "Finally, it won't be boring anymore," and told the man to come up quickly. The man jumped into his arena while the disciples started gathering outside the arena to watch. Yu, watching from above, smiled, wondering if Lu Hao thought the newcomer was weak. Yu knew that the newcomer was a professional killer he had hired from the Killer's Temple. Furthermore, this killer was at the 5th level of the Kai realm, more than enough to deal with Lu Hao, who was at the 3rd level. Lu Hao told the man he would take it easy on him and suggested they fight slowly, but the man simply drew his sword, agreeing to the proposal. Then, the man dashes in front of him and attacked with his sword, asking, "What if I want to finish this off quickly?" Fortunately, Lu Hao dodged the sword in time and noticed that it was a Kai-infused sword, indicating the man was at the Kai realm. The disciples were surprised to see a Kai-infused sword, making them wonder if that outer sect disciple was also at the Kai realm. Lu Hao told the man that controlling a Kai-infused sword required extremely high skill and he hadn't fully comprehended it yet. Then he asked the man if there were people like him among the outer sect disciples. The man laughingly told him that it was just a Kai-infused sword and asked if it was that fascinating to him. Then, the man jumped and swung the sword at Lu Hao, telling him, "If you want to learn, be prepared to pay with your life." He saw the blade coming closer and jumped away in time to dodge it. The man continued to attack, and he kept dodging and blocking the attacks with all his might. Laughingly, the man called him a fool for facing the Kai-infused sword and daring to engage in close combat. Then, the man launched his sword straight at him, shouting that he was seeking death. He shouted in pain when the sword pierced through his chest. He growled, looking at the sword, while the disciples couldn't believe what they had witnessed. They asked if that person actually killed Lu Hao. Yu shouted that it was nicely done, and the man laughingly asked the disciples if Lu Hao was the top disciple of the outer sect. Then, he proudly told everyone that in just a few moves, Lu Hao had become the soul under his sword. But he just asked the man who said he was dead and what he was envious of, making the man look at him in shock. The man asked him if he was not dead and how he could not be dead when he had pierced through his heart. A disciple noticed that there was no blade coming out from Lu Hao's back. He grabbed the sword pierced through his chest, pulled it out, and thanked the man for the lesson, telling him that his Kai-infused sword technique was not bad because he had already learned it during their previous battle. Then, he completely pulled the sword out of his chest, infused some of his power into the sword, making everyone surprised and unable to believe that he had survived a serious heart injury and learned the Kai-infused sword technique at the same time. He smiled, thinking that he had deliberately engaged the man in close combat to observe and learn the Kai-infused sword technique, and the sword that seemingly pierced into his heart actually only entered the sacred mirror space in his chest. Then, he walked closer to the man while holding the Kai-infused sword and releasing some of his power, telling the man that even though it was just an assessment, since he tried to assassinate him, he wouldn't hold back either. Then, he jumped at the man at full speed, and the man advanced with his sword to meet him, calling him arrogant and asking if he really thought he could defeat him like that. But he quickly appeared in front of the man, grabbed the man's hand holding the sword, and swung the Kai-infused sword at the man's body while telling him to die. However, the man managed to block his sword with another Kai-infused sword. The man wondered if this was the new student's strength and how Lu Hao could surpass a realm to defeat him. He swung his sword, but he was surprised when the man disappeared, and when he looked back, he saw the man a distance away, catching his breath. The disciples were shocked by the man's fast reaction and couldn't believe that he managed to dodge the lethal move, making them wonder about the kind of footwork he used. One of the elders recognized it and shouted that it was the Killer's Temple's void blinking technique, revealing the man with Lu Hao as one of the temple's assassins. Then, the elder ordered someone to quickly apprehend the Killer's Temple assassin, as they couldn't let the man escape. This made Yu clench his teeth in anger, realizing the man had exposed himself. The man immediately tried to run away and escape while the guards attempted to catch him. Knowing that if he stayed, he would die, the man decided that even with his identity exposed, he had to escape. He then used the void blinking technique, making it impossible for the guards to catch up due to its speed. The man smiled, thinking that no one there could catch up with him thanks to his void blinking technique, but he looked back when he heard a sound. Lu Hao was explaining that the Yao Guang Battle Kai technique, combined with the Kai-infused sword and the force of 30,000 gold, created a powerful attack. The man was surprised to see a strong blade force coming his way. Unable to dodge in time, he was hit by it, resulting in a loud explosion. The man fell down and was dead on the spot. Lu Hao didn't expect the combined strength of the just learned Kai technique to be quite impressive, and he felt a bit regretful about consuming 1,000 gold and death profound stones. The disciples were shocked that Lu Hao, an outer sect disciple, actually took down a Killer's Temple assassin. Then, they began to cheer for him, proclaiming him as the strongest among the outer sect disciples and calling him a god among them, which made him shyly tell them that their praises were too much. On the other hand, one of the elders ordered his people to investigate and find out where the assassin came from. Yu silently clenched his teeth, thinking that it was a close call for him. But he was relieved that the assassin died because he knew it could have been traced back to him. Nevertheless, Yu was furious that he still couldn't kill Lu Hao and knew he had to make a move in the next phase. Later, when everything was concluded, the elders announced that despite some unexpected incidents, the assessment had concluded smoothly. Although there were some surprises, the assessment was deemed a success. Then, Yu called Zhang Long to announce that he had defended against 5 opponents and was selected by Xuanjian, calling him to He Yu Peak to choose his affiliation with the inner sect. Yu continued to call the names of the disciples who were picked and successfully entered the inner sect, clapping to the side and wondering which peak he should choose for himself. Then, Yu called his name to tell him that he had defended against 1 opponent but was not selected by any main peak, thus remaining an outer sect disciple, leaving him stunned and surprised. He angrily told Yu that he had passed the test fairly and openly and asked why he wasn't selected. Yu teasingly replied that the number of disciples chosen was based on the number of opponents defeated in both the inner and outer sects, and since he only defeated 1 person, no one chose him. Suddenly, one of the disciples shouted that it was unfair and that Lu Hao was a genius who had defeated the Killer's Temple assassin. The other disciples began to agree, shouting that just defeating 1 opponent showed strength beyond merely defending against a dozen. Yu smiled, knowing that he had already bribed the inner sect elder, so as long as no one chose Lu Hao, he would have plenty of opportunities to get rid of him. However, Mo Feifan, representing his main peak, Tai Yunfeng, announced that he was willing to take in Lu Hao. The disciples stopped shouting, and he opened his mouth in surprise, while Yu looked back in shock too. Then, Yu angrily asked Feifan why Tai Yunfeng had broken its tradition of not accepting new disciples today. He reminded Feifan that he had forbidden him from accepting a disciple for Tai Yunfeng. However, Feifan, with a piercing gaze, questioned why Yu should concern himself with his decisions and released his Kai domain, forcing Yu to the ground and making him kneel, leaving Yu in shock and wondering if Feifan was not the waste he thought he was. The disciples were shocked by the unfolding events and questioned if Yu had actually kneeled to the supposed waste, Feifan, and why Feifan was displaying such arrogance. One of the disciples then reminded them that Feifan was once the personal disciple of the sect master and had only gone to Tai Yunfeng after being crippled. However, according to seniority, Yu was still one level below Feifan. Then, Feifan asked Lu Hao if he was willing to join Tai Yunfeng. Yu, struggling on the ground, thought that even if Feifan was willing to accept him, Tai Yunfeng was infamous for being the peak of the discarded and no one in their right mind would join, gambling on the chance of becoming crippled. Lu Hao then stated that he had thought the major peaks were bright and clever, but their refusal to accept him had revealed their hypocritical nature. Placing his fist on his palm, he declared that Feifan had offered him help when he was isolated and helpless. Respectfully, he announced to Feifan that he, Lu Hao, had no reason to refuse him, leaving Yu in shock. The disciples were in disbelief that the strongest newcomer had accepted the invitation from the most disregarded Tai Yunfeng, thinking Lu Hao's prospects were ruined. Feifan then declared that from that moment on, Lu Hao belonged to Tai Yunfeng and warned everyone that some dogs should be wary of biting indiscriminately. Yu cursed internally, frustrated that Feifan had accepted Lu Hao in front of him, making it even more challenging to deal with Lu Hao in the future. However, Yu consoled himself with the thought that Tai Yunfeng was the worst among the inner sects, curious to see what kind of trash Lu Hao would become. Later, in Tai Yunfeng, the master of Tai Yunfeng, Zhang Wenchen, asked him if Feifan had chosen him to join Tai Yunfeng as a new disciple. He bowed deeply and replied affirmatively, then told Wenchen that from now on, he would be his disciple. He remembered Chen's repeated advice against choosing Tai Yunfeng, but unexpectedly, he still joined. He thought having the backing of the sect felt good, and even in Tai Yunfeng, it should be fine. Then, he excitedly asked Wenchen what he should focus on cultivating after joining Tai Yunfeng, and whether it was to diligently practice the true transmission technique. However, Wenchen simply asked him what he was talking about and threw something in front of him, then ordered him to go and cultivate the fields. Feifan sighed in relief, saying that finally, it was not him doing that job, which made him grab the pickaxe in shock and disbelief. The next day, he was busy working in the field, thinking that entering the inner sect would be glorious. Unexpectedly, it involved farming, which was worse than being in the outer sect. However, after becoming an inner sect disciple, he learned about an exclusive system for inner sect disciples. He discovered that inner sect disciples could accumulate contribution points by completing certain sect tasks. For example, while he was farming for Tai Yunfeng, he could accumulate 10 contribution points. Once they have enough contribution points, they can exchange them in the sect's library for techniques and more. However, a single technique usually costs a few thousand contribution points. He sat down to drink while pondering how long it would take for him to accumulate enough points through farming. Just as he was about to drink, someone asked him if he was the new inner sect disciple named Lu Hao, making him look to his side in confusion. He then saw 3 men approach him, with the one in the center demanding that he hand over his contribution points as a sign of respect to the senior members of the inner sect, or they would break his legs. He questioned if they were the seniors known for snatching contribution points from newcomers, aware that the sect allowed the plundering of others' points. The man grabbed his sword, belittling him as merely a slightly stronger member of the outer sect trash, but warned that upon entering the inner sect, they would show him his true place. The man lunged at him with his sword, declaring him nothing more than the lowest tier, but he countered by launching his fist forward, striking the man in the face and breaking a few of his teeth, sending him flying back to his companions. He then cheekily apologized, stating he preferred to ask them for red envelopes, and advanced towards them, declaring his intent to collect money, making the seniors realize they had chosen the wrong target. Later, the men lay defeated on the field ground while he counted the contribution points he had acquired from them, gratefully acknowledging their gifts. Surprised to find himself with 4,000 contribution points so swiftly, he realized he could now exchange them for martial arts techniques at the library. In the library, he observed that the starting prices for books were between 40 to 50,000 points, making him question the affordability of any martial arts techniques there. He had hoped to acquire a martial arts technique from the body technique category and humorously considered it might be easier to rob their unworthy senior brothers. Suddenly, he heard a voice informing him of a martial arts technique available in the body technique category. He looked around, wondering if the voice was emanating from the fairy master within the Yaoguang Holy Mirror. The fairy confirmed this, explaining she could observe the outside world through the Holy Mirror. He questioned why she hadn't appeared during his previous dangers, to which she replied she spent most of her time in deep sleep, thus couldn't always attend to him. She then directed him to retrieve the Phoenix Void Sky technique, highlighting that despite being a yellow rank fragment, it was an extraordinary martial arts technique. After locating the Phoenix Void Sky technique book, he placed it on the cashier's table and proceeded to pay. The owner questioned his sanity, asking if he was sure he wanted to exchange his points for that trash book. He affirmed his decision, stating that the points he had accumulated were just enough for this purchase. The man waved him away, saying that young people are really impatient. If it were me, I'd rather save up for a few more years than exchange for that garbage, making him wonder if it was a trash book, when in fact he knew he had picked up a treasure. Then, he asks the fairy about the secrets of the Phoenix Void Sky technique. She replied, warrior martial arts are divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Mystery, and Yellow, with 3 grades each. They say that Heaven rank martial arts can destroy the heavens and the earth, and although Yellow rank martial arts are the lowest level, it doesn't mean that all Yellow rank martial arts are useless. Then she explained that the special thing about the Phoenix Void Sky technique is that it's a martial arts technique that can advance in rank, evolving from the Yellow rank to the Heaven rank. She also explained that the Phoenix Void Sky technique is a body technique used to enhance speed, and as long as he has enough beast core as energy, it can absorb and evolve. In its initial stage, it can burst with 100 times the speed, and when evolved to grand completion, it can fly at an extremely fast speed, comparable to an Earth rank body technique. Then she tells him that she'll continue to sleep and that he must practice well, which he agrees to. Then he saw a man pinning a lady named Fang Yun, asking her if she absolutely refused to accept his love. Jan tells Yun that he can see she has some charm, so he advises her to quickly accept him. Wu agrees with his brother and tells Yun that their Lu family is not easy to mess with. But she just asks Jan if he thinks he is worthy and tells them that she chooses men regardless of background, and that she has already set her eyes on someone. Then she told them that it was Lu Hao, who stood against the law enforcement hall, and she asked Jan if he had Lu Hao's courage and a sense of justice. Upon hearing Yun, he let go of his book, which caused a noise. Jan immediately looked in his direction and asked who it was. He awkwardly bent down to pick up his book and replied that he was just passing by. Yun was surprised to see him and shyly asked why he was there. Then she ran away in shyness, shouting to him that he hadn't heard anything and she hadn't said anything. Jan, furious, threw the flower aside and demanded how he dared to snatch a woman from him. Then Wu told him that he hadn't settled the score with him for knocking him out last time. The other inner disciples shouted that the new inner sect disciple, Lu Hao, seemed to be in trouble and it looked like they were going to fight. Suddenly, Wu jumped in his direction with a sword, shoutingly reminding him that last time he ambushed him with Kai, causing him to be unconscious for several days. Today, he said, he should let him teach him a lesson. But Lu Hao just raised his palm, calling Wu a lunatic, and released some of his power into his palm. Then he chopped down Wu with his Kai palm at the right time, telling Wu that he still needed to go back and read a book. Wu hit his head on the ground and became unconscious once again. Jan was shocked to see it, and the other inner disciples couldn't believe that he defeated Wu with a single strike, making them question the strength of the new inner sect disciple. Jan furiously shouted that it was outrageous and demanded how a new inner sect disciple like him dared to be so arrogant to his younger brother. Then Zhang launched toward him with a palm technique, telling him that he was too arrogant, unaware of the heights of heaven and the thickness of the earth. The disciples knew that Jan, stronger than Wu with Kai at the 6th level, thought if Jan made a move, it would be the end for Lu Hao. But Lu Hao simply punched Jan, making Jan shout in pain and demand what made him dare to be so arrogant with him. Jan was thrown to the ground, and Lu Hao jumped closer, then stepped on Jan's stomach, making Jan cough up blood. He seriously told Jan that he didn't care about their clan and that if it weren't for the rule in the Xuanjian sect against killing, he'd send him to meet the King of Hell by now. Jan, shakingly grabbing his foot to take it off, noticed that his strength was no joke, making him wonder how he could be stronger than him. Then Jan told him that his big brother, Lu Wei, would be back from his mission in 10 days and asked him if he dared to challenge Wei in the arena fight. He took his foot off Jan's stomach and walked away, asking Jan if he thought he had to accept just because he wanted to fight him. Then he teasingly told Jan that he wasn't his father, so he wouldn't spoil him. Still, Jan told him that if he defeated his big brother Lu Wei, he'd give him 100,000 gold coins and a world-shaking weapon, which made him stop walking. The disciples whispered that even if Jan offered more benefits, Lu Hao still wouldn't accept because, between wealth and death, it was clear which was lighter and which was heavier. But he looked back at Jan and smilingly accepted Jan's offer. Zhang excitedly told him that it was settled, making the disciples whisperingly ask if Lu Hao was crazy. Lu Hao was only at the 3rd level of Kai, so they thought facing a 9th level opponent made everyone know Lu Hao couldn't win. On the other hand, Lu Hao remembered that when he was at the Kai condensation stage, he almost killed Hong, who was at the true Kai stage. Both Wei and he are in the true Kai realm, so he thinks it's hard to say who will win between them. Jan stands up, smiling, thinking that others believe his big brother is at the true Kai 9th level. However, Jan knows that his big brother possesses a world-shaking weapon that enhances his brother's combat power. So, in reality, Y's strength is comparable to the first level of the Saint Martial Realm. Jan can sense that within Lu Hao's moves, there is indeed a technique from their Lu clan, so Jan was determined that his big brother Lu Y would reveal Lu Hao's technique. Later, back at Tai Yunfeng, Fei Fan, Wenchen, and he were sitting at the table to eat when Wenchen told him that he heard he arranged a fight with someone outside. Wenchen grabbed the whole chicken in front of him, telling him that he just arrived at Tai Yun Peak but was already causing trouble and embarrassing Tai Yun Peak. Wenchen gave a piece of chicken to his bowl, telling him that he'll be punished by eating chicken buttocks and he'll eat chicken legs while Fei Fan will eat chicken claws, to which he hopelessly replied, yes. Then Fei Fan tells Wenchen that he heard if Lu Hao wins, Lu Hao would get 100,000 gold coins, making Wenchen surprised and gave him a huge chicken leg. He asks his master what the meaning of it is, but Wenchen just tells him that when he arranges a fight with someone, it must be to uphold justice, and he understands him. Then Wenchen tells Fei Fan that to ensure Lu Hao's victory after he finishes eating, he should pass on his unique skill to Lu Hao, to which Fei Fan agrees. Then Wenchen gave him the whole chicken and told him to eat more to replenish his body, making him wonder if this was the feeling of having a master's protection because he felt so warm. A little later, he shockingly asks Fei Fan if he said if he won those 100,000 gold coins would vanish. Fei Fan replied yes, because their master is a gambling addict, and explained to him that their Tai Yunfeng is so poor because Wenchen lost. Then Fei Fan warned him to be careful if he didn't want to give his money to Wenchen because Wenchen might beat him, making him realize that the chicken on their table wasn't for free. They arrived at the training ground, and Fei Fan told him that Wenchen won't take his money for nothing. Then Fei Fan ordered him to watch him closely. Fei Fan jumps higher in midair and activates his Celestial Horizon technique. He swung his hand forward and hit the huge block of stones in front of them, which made the stones break into pieces. Then Fei Fan gets down on the ground and he asks what it is. Fei Fan replied that it was a technique called Celestial Horizon and it was an Earth-ranked skill. He asks him if he is going to teach it to him and tells Fei Fan the martial art he did is like waves, with a force that can reach 1,000 levels at its peak. Fei Fan tells him that once he masters it, it could overturn rivers and seas, and, from what he knew, Y, whom he was going to fight, is not as simple as being at true Kai 9th level. Then Fei Fan puts his 2 fingers on his forehead and passes the skill onto him. After that, Fei Fan tells him to try it quickly to help Wenchen win those gold coins, to which he agrees. Then he walked into the center of the blocks of stones while Fei Fan looked at him, knowing that it was his first time using it, so Fei Fan was not sure if he could handle it well. Fei Fan remembers that he used it up to the 5th level when he first learned it and knows that Lu Hao has some talent, making him hope that Lu Hao can unleash 2 levels. He put his palm on the huge stone and used the Celestial Horizon technique. His power spread around the stones he was touching but spread even wider around the huge stones from afar. Fei Fan was surprised to witness it and couldn't believe that Lu Hao actually used the 7th level of the Celestial Horizon technique on his first attempt. He asked Fei Fan how his first attempt was and if he passed. Fei Fan smiled and replied that Lu Hao was ready to give some money to his master. 10 days later, on the day of the competition, Zuer asked Lu Y if he really wanted to deal with a newly entered inner sect disciple, but Y simply asked her back why she was concerned about an outsider and told her that Lu Hao had bullied their Lu family. Then he asked her if she still wanted him to endure it. Wu, who was still in pain, asked Zuer why she was acting strange today. When she was about to explain her reason, she just shouted, telling them that they were not allowed to bully Lu Hao. He appeared and told her that she was the girl who helped him buy the stone last time. Then he asked her if she was worried about him. She worriedly asked him what he was doing there and told him to go back because Y was very strong. But he just wiped the tears from her eyes and told her not to worry about him. Then he walked past her, telling her that he wouldn't lose that battle. Then he walked up to the stage, and Y told him that he didn't expect him to dare accept the challenge. Y teasingly told him that although their competition was not a fight to the death, the rule was, as long as it didn't endanger lives, they could do whatever they wanted. Then Y asked him if he was ready to take on that challenge or if he wanted to hand over the martial art he stole from his Lu family before becoming a cripple. Zuer was shocked to hear it, but the Lu brothers were cheering for Y and shouted for him to beat Lu Hao hard. He told Y that it was ridiculous to think he was a winner before even starting the fight, and that they really knew how to daydream. Y pointed his spear at him while telling him that he was quite arrogant, just as rumored. Then Y furiously told him that he would target his left arm with the first strike and jump to attack him. The Lu brothers cheered for their big brother for hurting Lu Hao while Zuer closed her eyes in worry, but then he appeared like a wind closer to Y and punched Y in his chin hard, which caused Y to fly up into sky. Y shouted in pain while floating and then slammed down on the stage. Then he told Y that he was not up for that fight. The Lu brothers were shocked and asked what it was, while Zuer cheerfully called his name. Y stood up, telling everyone not to panic because it was just a small test, and he hadn't expected Lu Hao to have some strength. Then he thrust his spear forward with all his might and shouted that with its strike, he wanted Lu Hao's legs. Then he dashes him with his dragon slaying thrust technique. Wu laughingly shouted that it was the profound level technique of dragon slaying thrust, and Jan proudly said that Y's move couldn't be withstood even at the 8th level of Kai, which meant Lu Hao was doomed. But when Lu Hao's fist hit the spear, it broke into 4 pieces, and then it directly hit Y in the face. Once again, Y was thrown away and crashed down to the ground. The Lu brothers couldn't believe it, while Zuer shouted that it was great. Y stood up and told them there was no need to panic because Lu Hao was just taking advantage of his lapse in concentration. He assured them they should watch how he would smack Lu Hao in the face. But when Y looked up, he saw Lu Hao above him, about to kick. Lu Hao called Y a fool and kicked Y's head, making Y's face slam into the ground. Then Lu Hao told Y that's how to properly slap someone in the face. Y shouted worriedly for his face as it was sunk into the ground. Lu Hao told Y that he had just unleashed his power and asked if he couldn't handle it. Wu thought it was unbelievable that Y was actually being dominated and pummeled by Lu Hao. Y punched the ground in anger upon hearing Wu's words. He jumped away to create distance between them, and Y stood up, saying he didn't intend to use his full abilities against a guy with only 3-fold true Kai. Then Y released his power and told him that he was utterly clueless. Y grabbed his weapon of superior quality and told him that he would torture him until he wished he was dead. Jian proudly said that superior quality weapons come with storage space and can materialize out of thin air. Jian confidently stated that having a top-notch weapon enhances cultivation by 1 level, but an extraordinary one enhances it by 3 levels, and Wu continued by saying that their big brother's profound level martial arts meant Lu Hao wouldn't just die, he'd be crippled. Then Y ran toward him with his spear in the front, telling him that he had successfully provoked him. Y used all his might with the superior quality spear he was holding to attack him and said that this time, he'd give him a thorough beating. Zuer shouted worriedly to him that the spear had tremendous power, so he should be careful. But he just faced the spear and confidently replied that the strength of the holy martial realm didn't pose a threat to him. Then he quickly jumped high, knowing that over the last few days, to ensure a stable victory in the competition, he had broken through to the 5th level of True Kai using the Earth's profound stone. As someone who could already engage in cross-realm combat, coupled with Earth-level martial skills, his defeat was inevitable. He released a strong Celestial Horizon technique and threw it in Y's direction, making Y shout in pain. Lu brothers, Zuer, and the others watching covered their faces to avoid the force coming from his attack, and Y was thrown back down to the ground once more and collapsed, making everyone unable to believe that Y actually lost. Jan asked Wu if he hadn't misread it and since when Lu Hao attained the 5th level of True Kai. Wu replied that it was the martial skill of Lu Hao and asked if it could be the lost and legendary signature technique of the Fallen Master, the intermediate Earth level Celestial Horizon. Lu Hao grabbed the superior quality weapon of Y on the ground and told them that it was a done deal, so he was claiming the superior quality weapon Jan promised. Then he pointed to Jan and reminded him to ensure those 100,000 gold coins were delivered to him because he was off. Jan slammed his fist in anger, and Wu scratched his head in frustration, saying that Lu Hao had managed to defeat even their big brother at the pinnacle of True Kai. One of the disciples said that Lu Hao had now become the top figure in the inner sect, while Zuer proudly thought that Lu Hao had indeed grown stronger. 3 days later, in Lu Hao's dormitory at Tai Yunfeng, he was frustrated because almost all the coins he earned had been handed over to Wenshin. However, he was glad that at least he still had the superior quality weapon. He went inside the inner space of the mirror to look for the superior quality weapon he won, remembering distinctly that he had put it in there. The fairy appeared and told him that the weapon he was looking for didn't align with his practice technique, so she had the Yao Guang Holy Mirror devour it, making him shocked and shout that it was a superior quality weapon. But she told him that superior quality weapons are just trash and that the benefits from repairing the Holy Mirror far outweigh them. She explained that it repaired gems by devouring weapons and that the higher the quality of the devoured weapon, the quicker the gem restoration. She then told him that now the second gem shows signs of restoration and once he completes the restoration of the second gem, his Kai technique will triple in power. Upon hearing this, he realized that devouring weapons could repair the Holy Mirror and, with the right gem, it would be much stronger than a single superior quality weapon. Then he came out of the mirror and learned that the Holy Mirror needs weapons, while the Phoenix soars to the heaven technique needs the evolution of a beast core. He realized that one pit is deeper than the other and he needed to rapidly improve his strength. Suddenly, someone ran closer to him, panicky calling his name. He asked her if she was the girl who was surrounded by Jan and Wu last time. She replied yes and asked him if Chen was his brother, then told him that Chen is injured, so he should come with her quickly. He was shocked to hear it but followed Yun. Later, they arrived at Medicine Valley in the Xuan Sword sect. He saw Chen beaten up and collapsed on the bed and angrily asked who did it to him. Yun told him that Chen and she were out on a mission together but were ambushed and injured by the old hound, Huang Yu. He was pissed that it was the old dog again and turned around to leave, deciding to go settle the score with Yu. But then a woman told him to hold on and explained to him that Yu is at the pinnacle of the holy martial realm. Then she asked him if he could beat Yu and told him that she didn't want another casualty there. The Medicine Valley representative, inner disciple Xiao Hong, informed him that Fang Yun had brought his brother for treatment, emphasizing that their top priority was to find the medicine required to heal his brother. He inquired about her identity, and Yun explained that the woman before him was Xiao Hong from Medicine Valley, the one responsible for treating Chen. Hong sat down next to Chen, detailing that Chen's injuries were severe and that he would need to venture to the Demon God Mountain to find the Blood Lotus Flower, despite the mountain's notorious danger. Hong then challenged him, asking if he was prepared to watch Chen die or if he was willing to face the peril of death to secure the Blood Lotus Flower. He resolutely responded that he would find it, leaving Yun surprised. Hong concurred and cautioned him to remember that, with Chen under Medicine Valley's care, she could sustain Chen's life for 2 months. Hence, he must retrieve the Blood Lotus Flower within that time frame. He agreed and pleaded with Hong to look after Chen during those 2 months. However, their conversation was interrupted by someone who entered the room, questioning who had authorized an outsider's stay in Medicine Valley for 2 months. This person was revealed to be the Medicine Valley inner disciple and the grandson of the Medicine Valley master, Xing Lin. Hong defended Lu Hao, asserting that saving lives was imperative and questioned Lin if he intended to interfere. Lin clarified that while saving lives was Hong's prerogative, he had personal grievances, revealing that he once had a brother named Huang Hong who was killed by someone named Lu Hao. Lin, with a smile, declared that he couldn't simply allow the brother of the person who killed his own brother to remain there unchallenged. Yun discreetly informed him that Lin was the grandson of the Medicine Valley master and possessed considerable power, indicating that if Lin opposed them, maintaining Chen's stay there would be challenging. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment part 3 in the comments section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.